Hey, welcome back everyone to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 142, Space and Technology. I'm here with my co-facilitator, Lionel.
Hello, everyone. How y'all doing today? How you doing today, Mike?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I am well.
All right. Please hit the like button as you all come in. There is a docket in the description beneath the video, and we will get started. All right. So first item on the docket is from CNBC.com. Amazon just invested in self-driving car company Aurora. Self-driving car startup Aurora announced Thursday that it has raised more than $530 million in funding from investors including Amazon, Sequoia, and the investment arm of energy giant Shell. Quote, this funding and partnership will accelerate our missions of delivering the benefits of self-driving technology safely, quickly, and broadly, Aurora said. Aurora's management has a lot of experience in the automotive industry. The company CEO and co-founder Chris Er- Urmson is the former CTO of self-driving cars at Alphabet, which owns the autonomous vehicle firm Waymo. Co-founder and chief product officer Sterling Anderson led the design and launch of the Tesla Model X, according to Aurora's website. Drew Bagnell, Aurora's chief technology officer and co-founder, helped found Uber's Advanced Technology Center. Quote, we were always looking to invest in innovative, customer obsessed companies. And Aurora is just that, Amazon told CNBC in a statement. Quote, autonomous technology has the potential to help make the jobs of our employees and partners safer and more productive, whether it's in a fulfillment center or on the road. And we're excited about the possibilities. The Wall Street Journal said last year that Amazon has a team dedicated to building autonomous vehicle technology. Amazon also announced a partnership with Toyota last year that will help Amazon explore ways to use self-driving cars to deliver food. Earlier this week, CNBC reported that Amazon is already hauling cargo in self-driving trucks developed by Embark. Rather than manufacturing its own vehicles, Aurora is working with incumbents like VW and Hyundai, as well as Byton in China, to develop self-driving cars. It competes with Waymo, other venture-backed autonomous vehicle startups like Zoox, and self-driving companies that were acquired by Ford and GM, Argo AI and Cruise, respectively. Neither Amazon nor Aurora revealed just how much of the new funding round came from Amazon. The e-commerce titan's investment in Aurora followed its addition of risk language in its 10K filings that Amazon views, quote, transportation and logistics services as competition. Amazon's delivery costs exceeded $27 billion in 2018 using advanced driver assistive technology or fully self-driving vehicles could help it curb delivery costs. What do you think about this, Lionel?
Um, Seemingly, it seems like everyone is getting to the autonomous car vehicle business, but and saying that, it doesn't surprise me that Amazon is getting into it. Amazon, of course, owns Whole Foods, and I can easily see Amazon and Jeff Bezos using this to have people order their food from Whole Foods online or through an app and have it delivered to them the same day, or they can even schedule it tomorrow or the next day or next week or even on a schedule. Also, it they can also have this use this to get into the food, like the not the grocery delivery business, not just that, but also the food delivery business, hot foods such as they can have a hot bar. Well, most Whole Foods already have hot bars. You can possibly order stuff from there. So those are the ways I see Amazon using this to their advantage.
Yeah, Amazon has a vested interest in all of this because they don't build cars. As the article was stating, they don't have any interest in that. Although they do own a robotics company that they bought a few years ago called Kiva. And Kiva, being involved in robotics, and you match that with autonomous driving stacks from Aurora or another vendor of AI and autonomous driving, you might have something special here. The article also states that these that Amazon is already using some form of driver assisted vehicle for pulling up into its docks at a warehouse. So what that tells me is that there's already long term thought into this process.
Yeah, it's good. Of course, Amazon is a large company, and depending on what they do in expanding, like I said, well, and pertaining to their Whole Food stores, this can this can and come to think about it, they can even use this at their warehouse. Well, not specifically their warehouses. They're doing that in their around their warehouses already. You and the article stated that they stated that, but also they're opening brick and mortar stores. Um, One was a bookstore, and another is something else. I forgot. They can use them with those. So there's a number of possibilities that Amazon can use as autonomous vehicle technology to deliver things. We haven't rolled out drones. Well, we haven't talked about drones or other delivery methods. I know that in the picture on the article, Jeff Bezos was at uh, a unveiling of their 40th plane. That's what the caption said. So Amazon is they're not fighting the trend. They're not trying to buck the trend. They're of this new technology. They're with the trend.
Right, they're riding the bull for right now, as they fight for competition in the retail space with Walmart and Target. So we'll see how this plays out. But it is a good idea for anyone listening that they should probably look into autonomous driving development, um, as well as invest into some stocks. Look at the stocks, look at the supply chain aspect, and kind of determine the trajectory of where the market is going.
Agreed.
All right, next one is from New China TV. All right, temperatures plunge below -4 degrees Fahrenheit in northeast China, China's Harbin district. The country's the country tests a newly developed smart electric train running on a virtual track here to see if it can smoothly if it can run smoothly in frigid weather. So a electric a trackless tram is basically a train without any rails. This puts it in competition with buses because most traditional buses are not this long and they're not this flexible either. So when you match a trackless tram to a very long route, what that does is it nullifies the need for rails. So now you eliminate a piece of infrastructure that is legacy that's considered to be legacy based that is not really needed. On top of the fact that this is the first iteration of it, once you take into consideration artificial intelligence, designated bus stops and or train stops, or however you want to describe it, Now you're talking about something game changing, and they're beating the Americans at this because the Americans don't have anything remotely close to this. I mean, we have bendy buses, but those bendy buses are nothing like this. The bendy bus is just an extended bus, but this is the actual train with wheels, car wheels on it that can actually move like a snake through the street in the same way that a train actually operates on a rail.
Yeah, when I saw the video, and it's a short video, a minute and 20 seconds. When I saw it, how it was moving and turning, the first thing that came to my mind was this is a bus. You know why not use a bus? But like you said, buses don't have this many cars on it. Buses don't are not as agile like this. I know you mentioned the bendy bus. Been on one of those before, and those can be too big to maneuver at different parts of uh, uh, a city. At the end of the video, it showed how when they first revealed it last year. I think Q2 last year. It was the grain buses and how they were putting down not tracks, but on the street you can visually see like laid down like white tracks, not the hard seal, but just to train the system. And now we see this. This is it works in a negative degree weather, and it's agile. I'm sure it'll take up like a portion of the street so people can easily get to it at the stops. It can carry more people. Like I said, this is the first iteration of it. Who knows the second, third, fourth, fifth iterations of these that it'll be able to hold more people. It'll be able to get past rush hour traffic and other parts of traffic. It'll be able to seek out different. Well, it depends if it stops at designated stops or not. But it's pretty cool. And like you said, um, America doesn't have anything close to this. Only thing we, other than the bendy buses, we have in with the street cars. Those are the only cars that even you can say resemble this.
Right, and the video shows that the conductor or the train operator actually took his hands off the wheel and it moved on its own. So there's already automation involved in the whole entire system. So there's possibilities that this is a very early version of what they have coming down the line, probably in the next year or so, by 2020 or so, with more artificial intelligence and the ability to maneuver on its own. Because it's going in a straight line, but they don't actually show it snaking from one lane to the other. So this is actually a big game changer. It puts China leap years ahead of what the United States has to offer. I mean, we have trolley trains in Boston and San Francisco and those places that have overhead um, electrical conductors. Basically, they still use electricity for the most part. However, they're nothing like this. They rely on rails, and this does not rely on rails. This actually is a trackless tram, and it holds up to probably close to 150 to 200 people standing and sitting. So that's a game changer in terms of moving pedestrians, and you factor in each pedestrian has a car, and you put 200 of those people on 150 to 200 of those people on a tram. Now you just took 150 to 200 cars off the street. So that's where you're starting to see the gains and the benefits of something like this. No need for legacy infrastructure in place to create a HOV lane that you typically would have used for other high occupancy vehicles, and now you're pushing that tram down the same line.
Especially when in the future, in the next decade, at least within the next decade or so,
population in these large cities are expected to boom since the world population is going to jump from 7 to 12 billion within the next few decades. So these type of technologies are needed to relieve that uh, congestion within cities and surrounding areas.
Hey, what's going on, Super Triz? Um, I don't know Vancouver's if Vancouver have an autonomous tram. That's different than a train. The video that we just looked at was an actual tram. Nothing has like that has been done yet, which is what the video is kind of pointing out. Um, I know Russia was working on a similar tram a few years ago, but I'm not sure what happened to that. That was back in like 2013, 2014. But in terms of the United States has nothing, absolutely nothing like this. If you have a link, Super Triz, then please drop it in the chat. We'll gladly look at it. But I have yet to see anything like this, and um, we've covered over probably 1,000 videos, and we haven't seen anything like that. Yeah, but is it a tram? Is it a trackless tram? That's what I'm asking. A trackless tram. I know Atlanta has a autonomous train in the airport, but I'm not sure if there's a trackless tram. Yeah, that's a train. Super Triz. I'm looking at it now for Vancouver, Washington. That's a train. That's not a trackless tram. So it's a little bit different than what we're talking about. Yeah, it's a little bit different than what we're talking about. This is something that no one has done yet. I know the French were working on something similar some years ago, and I know the Russians were working on something similar because Russia had demonstrated this back in like 2011, 2012 in Moscow. But I wouldn't doubt that the Chinese probably ripped them off and they probably canceled the project because they were going to sell it to North Korea um, back in 2014. I'm not sure whatever happened to that deal. But thank you, Super Trish, for coming over here. It's definitely good to see you over here. All right, let me share my screen real quick. All right, this next one is from DW documentary, drones, robots, and super sperm: the future of farming. Where can you start? I know.
Well, in the beginning, the
You
huh?
go ahead. Go ahead.
I believe in the beginning it cut to the guy using technology to grow his asparagus. Of course, he used well-known techniques with the heat and everything, but he used a temperature. And in each of these asparagus rows, he put, I think, a temperature and a sensor. This in this tube is not only, like I said, a temperature, but it's a sensor that tells him, hey, these asparagus are growing. They're almost ready to be harvested and so forth. And that, he says, helped him maximize the growth of his asparagus. P went not P B when he should pick them, and C uh, helps him. I believe he said pick the correct ones. Either he said that again or somewhere in else in the document. The second one is a woman, and it's all in Germany. It's a woman that is basically she is natural selecting, if I can put it like that, cows. The cows that are not knocking, where they're uh, their milk sac. I don't know the correct term for that. It's not too low, where they're perfect. So they will allow, what they're doing is design not designing, but breeding cows to fit the milk machine, so they can sell as much milk as they can instead of trying to fit a oblong cow in a square milk machine. Fit a square cow in the square milk machine. So they're breeding cows for that sort. And then the third one, this guy, he's growing corn and he's fighting this new um, pest in the area because of global warming. So what they're doing is they're using a drone to spread these balls that are filled with this pest natural enemy. So it won't, so this pest won't eat up the corn supply. And they're using technology for to do all that.
Right. So what they basically done, and I'm glad you summarized a lot of this stuff, but they basically turned the farmland into Internet of Things. So the cows have these um, devices on their ears used for tracking their activity. So they can tell whether or not the cow is having heart condition issues and um, anxiety and things of that nature, and that can determine whether or not that cow needs to go, so to speak, needs to be terminated or put into a slaughterhouse, or whether or not they can actually save that cow. They know everything about each animal in their possession based on the IoT technology that they're using, and this technology is actually feeding data back to a system in a cloud that can actually be useful for determining the next decision that can affect their business economically as well as technologically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
the whole
go ahead.
entire thing, the whole entire farms are basically have been supersized with technology. Devices in the ground determining the temperature and the growth of the asparagus. Um, the cows all have all sorts of equipment to them. You know, automation. You know, the suction of the milk coming from the cow. They can determine the quality of the milk, or what kind of quality they're going to get from each cow out of 500 cows in the stock. Um, they're breeding these cows based on the quality of the sperm from each and every bull that they have in harvest, and that's lucrative in itself, and it's a business. 120 euros for for one of their best cows, just for some sperm.
Yeah.
Most black, that's the type of money that black men get for their sperm, but that's a whole nother show.
Yeah, that's wow. Um, and what you were talking about, the milk and the cow, they put them on this um circular device that spins them around. That,
Carousel.
yeah, carousel. I was about to say, I don't know why I want to say rotund for some reason. They put them on a spinning carousel, and the computer does, depending, it takes into account how long it takes to milk a cow. So it takes that number, and if a cow takes longer than expected, and they also say it takes run, one rotation to milk the cow. If one or some cows take longer, then it slows the rotation to make sure that all the cows are being milked in one rotation.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Hmm.
Also, um, how they're not feeding these cows like Monsanto beans or anything like that. They're looking at them, they're measuring their sizes, and they're saying, okay, uh, this is this. Now with the asparagus, everything you said was right. That I like what they were doing with the asparagus. They're just putting a sensor in the ground, making sure everything was on point, everything was on schedule, to cut down that unnecessary work. Because he was saying the, the wages went up, so he can't pay everyone a minimum wage. So he got these machines that will replace people. That's what he said. Replace people.
Hmm.
So I like that it takes out that constant work, that backbreaking work. I know people say, well, work is good, but you want to live long. You don't want to be aching when you're grown. And they taking care of all of this massive hectares of land.
Hmm.
Then one farmer says he spends more time in front of the computer than he does out with his animals because is that it's that automated.
Right. This is talking about taking people's jobs. People think that we're just making this stuff up, and yeah, this is real. This is absolutely real. So you can lose your job to, you know,
Yeah, not too many people want to farm in this day and age. So farmers may get these robotic, these robotic machines to till the land. Not only till the land, but till how deep it's supposed to go, depending on which crop you want to plant. Every so years, you gotta rotate the land, so you don't need an ox or a cow to pull forgot the name of the thing behind it. You scraping up your hands. No, you can get this machine. It's GPS guided. You map it out, say, this is my plot of land. It ends here and so forth. I want this over there, this over here. As many other upgrades happen, you're able to do that to farmland.
mhm. Yeah, this is where we are right now. This idea that of traditional farming is it's over. It's game over for that. And the amount of land that he's using is only it's not a whole lot to grow asparagus, but um it's a lot to actually get what he's bargaining for. He's making a lot of money off of that asparagus.
Yeah, I think he said the machine he was using is later on in the document, but the machine he was using cost 100,000 euros, but he gets that from two. I forgot the word he used, from two rows of asparagus.
Hmm.
I'm like, wow,
Yeah, who knew asparagus cost that much? You can make that much money off of it.
right, right, wow. Might get a farm, take it back to the old days.
Also, the drone comes in handy for more than a variety of things. I mean, now, right? That drone is it's not as stable according to the video because he couldn't sync it up. It took him some time, mad tries, five, six, seven tries before he can get it working.
Yeah,
So there's some bugs there, but as time progresses, that drone's just going to take off on its own and drop those balls off where it needs to go, based on the
yeah,
mapping, based on everything else. Right now, it's very, very
rudimentary.
well, it's really it's in a beta state because he hasn't really figured out all the bugs.
And also it said he said that he allotted himself 9 days. He got started late, but he still finished 2 days ahead. So even though it was buggy, he still finished 2 days ahead. And to what you're saying, when he gets it, I don't say bug free, like Rebecca term, how efficient that wow, yeah,
This is where we are right now with technology. This idea that you're gonna go to Geek Squad and get a job fixing computers. This is the future. This is where we are right now. You got a lot of vacant lots in Chicago, Baltimore. where you can actually build greenhouses and start farming asparagus for yourself and start going straight to market. You can actually challenge Whole Foods in this area.
Mm,
As a matter of fact, Whole Foods actually buys from minority businesses now.
that's good. That's a nice idea. You know what? Complex mentioned that a couple of times. Kind of think about it. Yeah, this is get one of the containers we went over a couple weeks ago.
Not even
Grow
a
from
container. Not even a container. You, if you had something like the size of a basketball court and you structure it correctly, you could actually put a
oh,
greenhouse on there. I mean,
yeah.
you can use containers too, but there's ways of going about this. Because in Boston, we have urban farms too. We have like multiple greenhouses that's on basketball courts or the size of a basketball court. It's like 8 basketball courts where they have these farms, greenhouses set up, and then you can farm whatever you need in there, and it's all secure anyways.
Put some vertical farming on there, raised beds. Yeah.
What'd you say?
Vertical farming, raised beds. Make it easier, but still grow as much food as you can within that boundary.
Hmm. Yeah, this is a very lucrative market. Maybe because Germany only has so much time to grow food, like between what May to August, and then after that, the season is kind of dead.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold up there.
Yeah, their summertime, their grow season is really really short, so they're probably racing against time, right? And they need all that technology to actually grow their crops and grow their produce.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Look how much they're investing into it. They got a whole machine that actually picks up the plastic off of the asparagus batch and then digs up the ground and puts more seed in there. Like they have like a 10-man team for a whole farm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because with the the trucks he was getting, he rent no, not that the one that he got to put a heating hose up under the asparagus stems. He
Hmm.
rented that, but still, that one they said they were behind time because the ground was hard, which means cold setting in. But it tilled the ground at a certain depth. They laid the hose down, and every so often they would put about 10 asparagus sticks in. But the guy that he rented the truck from,
Hmm.
he had to go somewhere else that same day, which means that truck was so efficient that he can get more than one person, at least more than one person, farm till that for that asparagus to lay that heating hose down a day. And he was saying that it's GPS guided and it stays within 2 inches, I think, of where it's supposed to be, and it can go for miles and miles and miles.
Hmm. Hmm. That's something to think about. I mean, there's a lot of land available in the United States. You know, we've covered this on our offline hangouts, but there's a lot of land available for purchase for cheap on the dollar. So
Hmm.
this whole new farming thing could be a game changer with this technology. So
Yeah.
we now have Super Trish with us. What's going on, brother?
I was going on, Super Trish. How you doing?
He might be away right now, but I thought it was interesting what they did with that bull. He wasn't BSing around.
Ha. Hey, I don't want to make jokes, but at the end when they were getting the sperm from the bull, and the way they were describing the tools they were using,
Hmm.
they were just saying like it was no problem. Like, oh, he was a such and such. And I was like, that just looks weird.
Oh, a flashlight.
No, it was a a warm vagina. that they use for the bull.
Yeah.
He warmed it up, put water in it, and the way he got it, it was weird, man. It was weird.
He was like a minute brother up on there.
Yeah, he was. I'm like, I'm looking like, okay, what happened?
Yeah,
Oh, that was hilarious.
yeah, this gives me a lot of ideas, man. This gives me a lot of ideas because if they're making money like that,
Yeah, I didn't know they were making money because when he was saying, "Oh, this machine," well, the commentator was saying this machine costs this much, this machine costs this much, this machine costs this much. I'm thinking, wow, they in debt. But when they said that, oh, I can get A, they saving money for overhead. B, everything's more efficient, so they able to grow much more than people just putting bulbs in the ground.
hmm
I'm thinking like, wow, they maybe making money here.
yeah,
This is a great. I want to say greetings to everybody on the esteemed panel.
How you doing?
greetings.
What makes this so innovative and revolutionary is the fact that there's an immediate return on investment, as opposed to some other businesses that people may venture into. Unfortunately, the drawback is that you have to actually put the work in. Um, but if you're willing to put the work into farming, the actual returns are immediate. Some businesses they may take 5 years before they actually turn a profit. But something like farming, especially if you buy the land, at a substantial discount, and you're able to actually make a return on your investment, within the first year.
hmm Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's something that black men need to be focused on. Africa needs a lot of farmers, right?
Oh, speaking of Africa, I have a coworker. He's African. He's from Ghana,
hmm
and well, he is in business with the Chinese, but he has some Chinese investors. He bought the land. I think he paid, maybe, was it $300 an acre for the land. Now, mind you, he's a CNA, so he's not making that much money. Uh, he bought the land for like $300 an acre. The Chinese investors basically invested in the actual equipment, so he's basically producing feed for livestock, and he's already making a return on this investment already.
hmm
So that's like a key. Like, if you're able to, get the actual equipment that costs, because sometimes you can buy used equipment that's just as functional,
hmm
right?
hmm
Or you can actually get land for cheap. Find out, which avenue you're willing to go, and if you're willing to put the work in. Now, unfortunately, Africa, for those people who are interested in Africa, you really need to put boots on the ground. It's not something that you can just like take your hands off the wheel.
hmm
You actually have to put boots on the ground. You have to oversee the entire process. Him being from Africa and familiar with the culture is significantly easier for him. But that's something for people who are more acclimated to African culture and who is willing to actually go back and forth, or at least maybe even relocate to Africa.
hmm Yeah, I think. Lionel, do you know the conversion for an acre to a hectare?
It's like 2.5 acres equals 1 hectare.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. I mean, I think about it from the perspective of the United States because most urban environments are considered to be food deserts, right? So how do you create um, close that gap, um, agricultural gap using technology? And this is why I had to put that on the docket because I think that's something that we should actually talk more about because we had a whole hangout, Super Triz, one Saturday, actually going over all of this and talking about the many inventions and the amount of investment that's going into this stuff right now. We was covering at least a $500 billion of investment accumulated of some of the topics that we were focusing on. IoT, which is Internet of Things, 5G, Internet, Wi-Fi, uh, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, data science, whole gamut of areas where it won't take you that long if you're a black man who's looking to transition out of one job from one career market to a next to get into this market.
You know, myself along with BGS Itmore, we've discussed ad nauseum some of the upcoming changes I did have a brief discussion on my stream, Age of Aquarius, on my actual page, but we've actually had discussions offline. Like normally, BGS has a hangout every Saturday, and then after the stream ends, we stay on the Google Hangouts chat, and we have like kind of backroom discussions that we don't really want to put out on the internet. And
Oh, really?
basically, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, and these backdoor discussions usually last about 5 hours, and so
Goodness.
we basically discussed some of the upcoming changes in addition to automation, the gene editing aspect as well, and how that will affect um, just the African American collective. You know, and those individuals who are not looking at ways to either educate themselves so they remain viable in a changing landscape, or they're actually investing in ownership, whether it be commercial real estate or just even empty land, something. Because at some point, you know, the actual bar is going to be raised to where the skill level required for even entry level positions, you know, that they're willing to occupy those positions with humans,
Hmm.
because most positions will be occupied by you know, by automated entities of some sort, maybe some type of mainframe controlling multiple functions. But the few jobs that will be available to humans,
Hmm.
the bar will be exceedingly high. You will have to have a very specialized skill that that can't be performed efficiently by machinery.
Hmm.
So, you know, those are things people have to looking for. You have to start making those changes now, culturally make these changes, because culturally we're invested in things that may not have a foreseeable future and are limited because the actual selection pool, say for instance, you're talking about professional sports, talking about entertainers,
Hmm.
very small percentage of people actually, you know, excel in those areas. Because there's only so many slots for entertainers, only so many slots for professional athletes.
Hmm.
We have to make cultural changes to make things like technology and education, you know, more palatable to the youth. And, you know, just let me, not to get long winded, I'm going to end on this. I
Hmm.
had a discussion, you know, with some individuals where I talked about some of the differences in culture. Whereas I remember being in school, you know, whereas most of the African Americans were concerned about what outfit they had on, the Jordans and the Arab tempos and things of that nature. The what made you cool and Asian, and to a certain extent African immigrant culture,
Hmm.
was your grades. They would have discussions about, oh, after class, what grade did you get? Oh, I got a 92. Well, I got a 93. Well, I got a 97.
Hmm.
And whoever got the highest grade was the coolest.
Hmm.
So this is the kind of cultural changes we have to make. And obviously school is not the avenue for everybody, but there are some basic skills that you need to learn. You know, mathematics, I believe, across the board, mathematics and basic understanding of sciences,
Hmm.
that's something that, you know, that can't be compromised. I don't care what it is you do.
Hmm. And that's why we have the Black Brain Trust.
And I thank you guys for it. Very, very enlightening. I love being here.
Absolutely. Let me share my screen. All right, this one is from macrumors.com. Let me do up real quick. German security researcher Linus Hens this week discovered a new zero-day Mac OS vulnerability dubbed "quote key steal," which, as demoed in the video below, can be used to get to a lot of sensitive data stored in the Keychain app. Hens appears to use a malicious app to extract data from the Mac's Keychain app without the need for administrator access or administrator password. It can get passwords and other information from Keychain, as well as passwords and details for Mac OS users. Hens has not shared the details of this exploit with Apple and says that he won't release it because Apple has no bug bounty program available for Mac OS. Quote, so blame them. Hens writes in the video description. In a statement to Forbes, Hens clarified his position and said that discovering vulnerabilities takes time. quote, finding vulnerabilities like this one takes time. And I just think that paying researchers is the right thing to do because we are helping Apple to make their product more secure. Apple has a reward program for iOS that provides money to those who discover bugs, but there is no similar payment for Mac OS bugs. According to German site Heise Online, which spoke to Hens, the exploit allows access to Mac keychain items, but not information stored in iCloud. Keychain is also required to be unlocked, something that happens by default when the user logs into their account on a Mac. Um, let me basically, if you have a Mac, you're screwed. Um, me being a cybersecurity person and the SME on this panel, um, this is bad. This is really really bad because last week we covered in an article where a young 14-year-old discovered a FaceTime bug that allowed eavesdropping to take place um, through FaceTime group chat, basically. And now you have this. So now you not only do you have eavesdropping happening, and not only do you have expensive devices that you pay for, but they also have a lot of bugs that they don't actually pay for a bug bounty program. A bug bounty program is basically a rewards program that allows people who discover bugs in the operating system or an application to be rewarded for their discoveries of these vulnerabilities. And Apple does not have a system like this, so Microsoft has one, but Apple does not. And unfortunately, if you have a Mac, you're kind of screwed. I know you have a Mac, right?
No, don't put that on me. Apple can't. Apple can't catch a break after the FaceTime debacle. Now this, and it's like they're stubborn. It's like, okay, we know that you are a white hat person, and the only thing you're asking for is, and I agree with the guy. You know, you should have a bug bounty here. It's like a lot of other people do. Why not you? Are you too good to have a bug bounty? Uh, you have this flaw that I'm saying that you need to patch, but you refuse. It was at this point in time you can't refuse because your iPhone sales are going down. 55% of your revenue comes from iPhone. You had to do damage control on this FaceTime bug. Now this, it's not like he discovered this and Apple saying, okay, we're gonna pay him to patch so we can patch this. They're saying, no, we're not gonna pay you. Just give us what you have anyway. Eh, it not a good look, Apple.
So, Patricia, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I have a question for the panel. I'm not sure if anybody can answer this. And now you said that you're into cybersecurity of some sort, correct?
That's my profession, yes.
Okay, so what about the Mac OS and to a certain extent the iPhone OS makes it exploitable? And now, is it that maybe it's become popular, so people are just targeting it, or is there something about it? Is there too many features integrated into the iOS? What exactly is the issue here? Do you have an understanding of that?
Sometimes when code gets written, it has to go through a QA process and a QE process, quality assurance, quality engineering, and you add one feature and then it breaks something else. So that's typically what happens in code development. Which is why Microsoft tends to have a lot of patches for their operating system because they have a set standard of bugs that they know exist, but it's a matter can they get to them. So they're not going to delay their product just because there's some bugs that do exist. If the platform is stable enough for release, what we call stable release, then what happens is it gets released, but there's still the bugs available. Now they may go back and patch that bug, but then another bug is available because there's another maneuver inside the operating system that is being performed that opens up that vulnerability. So things like that happen. It's normal in any sort of software development, But the reason why we razz at Apple is because people think that Apple is invincible. They're the best product. Nothing can go wrong. You can never get you never get viruses. But we're starting to see now is a lot more than viruses that you have to worry about. You have to worry about your credentials being stolen, by some guy who doesn't even want to submit his information to Apple. And your credentials are sitting on your laptop, that you paid $2,000, $3,000 for, and you don't even know it.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is just an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Out of, we'll just say the three major operating systems, we have the Mac iOS, we have Windows, and we have Linux.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a little bit smaller. So out of those three, what do you think is the most? Can you give maybe? I guess each one has its own advantages and disadvantages. Can you briefly go over some of the advantages and disadvantages and what your personal recommendation is?
For reference, I use a Chromebook. I left Windows last year. I left Microsoft's platform last year. I don't even use Microsoft's platform anymore.
Okay, so now Chrome. Now that's an entirely different operating system.
It's based on Linux.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
It's based on Linux. So to answer your question, it's all dependent on application. So depending on what application you're using, that's what's going to drive the value of the operating system. So for the reason why Microsoft Windows is so popular is because it's application supported, and it runs on x86 hardware. Before, Apple did not do that. They used to run on PowerPC platform. So a lot of applications did not support that, and it was very difficult to port a Windows application to a Mac operating system because the coding was completely different. Because the Mac is based off of BSD, or it's a BSD derivative. So BSD is a derivative of Unix, and Unix is the base layer for Linux. So at the end of the day, it all comes back full circle. Now, what's happening here is that there's really not that much of a difference between Windows 10s and Mac OS in terms of stability. Before, you would have bought a Mac because it was stable. Now, Microsoft has figured out all the bugs. Lenovo, IBM, Intel, AMD, all the hardware companies have already figured out the bugs. Now they all have a stable platform for the most part. Very rarely do I ever see a Windows computer really shut down due to failure or any sort of malfunction. But now you're starting to see more bugs pop up from Mac OS because more people are using it, so there's more exploits being discovered. So it's easier to kind of point and razz at them because it's not normal, but at the same time, it's so expensive of a platform, it's hard to believe that these bugs even exist. Chrome is a whole different variant in itself because it's kind of merged in with Android because you can run Android apps on top of it. So for me, I use software as a service. I can connect everything to the cloud, and it doesn't matter what kind of device I'm using because it's agnostic. But the Chromebook itself runs very stable for the most part, other than sometimes I get booted off of a Hangout. But outside of that, I never have any problems with it. As a matter of fact, I very rarely do I ever reboot my computer. It stays on almost 24/7.
Now, when I look at the different platforms, I see various price discrepancies. I'm not exactly sure about the price of Linux operating system based PCs, but I have noticed that Chromebooks tend to be cheaper. Windows tend to be a little bit pricier. Not that they're pricey, but a little bit pricier than the Chromebooks. And then Mac is at the upper end of the spectrum. Is there a particular reason why, other than brand cachet, or is it just strictly hardware issues that make it more expensive?
Google Chrome runs on just about anything. So, and Google gives away Chrome for free. Whereas with Microsoft, you have to pay for the license of the operating system if you're a manufacturer. That's where the difference in price comes in. Plus, the better the hardware is, for from a performance standpoint, the better the Windows operating system is going to run. So the more hardware you throw at Windows, the better it's going to run overall. So that's why there's so much price differences in terms of the Chromebook and the Microsoft-based systems.
And the Mac OS?
Mac is free because Apple has to bundle it with their machines. They won't allow anything else to be sold with it. And plus, it's kind of proprietary, right? It's closed source. It's not like, oh, you can buy a Mac operating system and then put it on a HP or a Dell. That's not how it works. Now, the opposite is true. You could buy a MacBook and load Windows onto it because it uses x86 traditional hardware. Before, when it ran PowerPC on Motorola and IBM's platform, that was different. You couldn't run Windows on it, and if you tried to, it ran like shit. So Apple charges that much because they're considered to be a premium brand, and they cover
brand cachet.
Right. They're like the Aston Martin of computing. They can afford to charge that much, and their audience doesn't seem to really care too much because they're not as computer savvy in that regard. Windows and Google users tend to be tinkerers, and one of the things that they found was that people who buy Android phones also drive pretty stick shift vehicles, so they like very scary things in terms of performance. They'll drive a Corvette before they drive something, like if you look at most Apple users, they tend to drive Teslas from a technology standpoint, right? They pair their technology with other forms of technology, whereas Android users tend to they like things that can kill them. They like the Mustang GT 350 or whatever it is, or the GT 500, that Shelby. Am I right, Mr. Paul Bryant? How are you doing tonight?
Shots fired.
What's going on, Paul?
What's going on, brother?
Shots fired. Hey, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Yourself?
I'm good.
You have the Paul Bryant. You drive the GT 350.
No, I have an Audi S4 6-speed manual.
Oh, okay.
Little road rocket, but
I used to have a Mustang back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Oh what?
2011 had a Mustang, but I'm up in here in Seattle. I gotta have a 4-wheel drive vehicle up here, so.
You got to get some snow tires, brother. Get some snow tires. Get some Michelins or some Pirellis, Soda Zeros.
Man, if you've seen how it's snowing out here right now, like you need something with ground clearance, and you need a 4-wheel drive SUV. Period.
Well, that's why you have an SUV as your second vehicle, so that's covered. Plus, every Audi is 4-wheel drive. So when it gets really bad, I park that and I pull out the Tahoe. Boom, covered.
I'm more of a motorcycle guy. I've owned motorcycles in the past, and so if I have a second vehicle for good weather, then it'll definitely be a motorcycle.
Got you.
And yes, I am an organ donor.
Yeah, I have my motorcycle license as well, so I'm a Ducati guy.
Oh, Ducati! I was thinking about, I've had a Yamaha, I've had a Yamaha R6, had a CBR 1000, had a Hayabusa, and my next motorcycle was definitely going to be a Ducati.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be my next motorcycle, but then I moved out here and I was like, nah, I'll just stick to the SUVs for now.
Mm-hmm. Let me get to this next article. Oh, Paul Bryant, did you have anything you wanted to add about this Mac OS bug being found through this keychain vulnerability?
Quick question. I do have a Mac. I have an iMac. I don't use keychain. I don't use any of those cloud services or anything of that nature. I don't keep any sensitive information on my computer, other than, business records and financial records as such. So should I be worried about this?
Unless you have keychain on there, I probably would not. It depends on which version of Mac OS X or Mac OS that you're using. So
okay, Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, you should have some kind of virus protection on it at some point.
Hmm. Well, I have to admit, I was always one of those. Um, Apple doesn't have enough market penetration into the PC market to warrant me putting antivirus coverage on the Mac. But apparently I have to seriously revisit that mindset.
Hmm. Yeah, not having any virus protection now is like pretty bleeding edge at this point.
Okay, cool.
Right in the razor there, Paul. All right, this next one is from BBC.com. Rosalind Franklin, Mars rover named after DNA pioneer. The honor follows a public call for suggestions that drew nearly 36,000 responses from right across Europe. Astronaut Tim Peake unveiled the name at the Airbus factory in the Stevenage, where the robot is being put together. The six-wheel vehicle will be equipped with instruments and a drill to search for evidence of past or present life on the red planet, giving the rover a name associated with a molecule fundamental to biology seems therefore to be wholly appropriate. Rosalind Franklin played an integral role in the discovery of the structure of the wow, I don't even know how to pronounce that. That's
Deoxyribonucleic acid, also known as
Yeah,
DNA.
DNA.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Yeah, it caught me off guard there for a second.
Yeah.
I thought they misspelled it. I was like, what the hell? It was her X-ray images
We
that
lost you, Mike.
it was her X-ray images that allowed James Watson and Francis Crick to decipher its double helix shape. Franklin's early death from ovarian cancer in 1958, aged just 37, meant she never received the recognition given to her male peers. Oh Lord. The attachment to the European Space Agency rover will now see her name travel beyond Earth. Quote, in the last year of Rosalind's life, I remember visiting her in the hospital on the day when she was excited by the news of the quote Soviet Sputnik satellite, the very beginning of space exploration. Franklin's sister Jennifer Glenn said on Thursday. So I just want to show this picture right here because I know that it's the closest thing that they have to the rover itself. But interesting that they decide that they want to go and search for life on Mars. After the Americans have already done this, what, a couple years ago?
Well, there was the pyramid and the face and what appears to be the remains of a city found on Mars. So clearly, at one time, there was a civilization there of beings who built a pyramid and who put a face and cut into stone on Mars. So whether they're looking for current life or past life, who knows? But there's definitely something up there. And I will say this as to the American mission. I was watching the news, as I'm sure everyone was, the week before when NASA said, here are computer generated images of what we think the rover will send back when it gets to Mars. A
Hmm.
week later, NASA released all the photos and said, these are the first images sent back from the Mars lander. It was the same CGI photos. So I'm sitting there asking myself, am I the only person on the face of the earth who sees that these are the same CGI pictures that they showed us 1 week ago? So whatever it is that they actually saw up there, they still haven't shown from that Mars rover.
What are you saying that the Earth is flat?
I'm not saying that the Earth is flat. What I am, because those people are absolute morons.
They
But
saw Transformers up there.
exactly, they saw Transformers on Mars, and Sentinel Prime is bringing Cybertron here. But whatever they did see up there has not been released to the public. That's what I'm saying. So now This is why we're seeing China sending missions to the dark side of the moon, and we're seeing the UK planning to send um, a rocket up to Mars when they can't even put a freaking operational navy to defend their own shores. Whatever's up there, they're not showing to us.
Super Triz, go ahead.
What's that?
No, it says Super Triz.
Yeah, if there, I think I don't know if there is necessarily life currently, or what I would say what we categorize as intelligent life, life that because of the atmosphere or lack thereof on Mars. But I think they're probably considering the possibility of supporting life on Mars because we understand that you know there are many celestial phenomena that can terminate life here on Earth. From a massive solar flare, asteroid, anything, radiation from a supernova, there's so many things that can actually, affect life here on Earth. So I'm thinking they're probably looking at other possibilities for, for habitats and maybe even perhaps terraform Mars if it's actually feasible with current technology. So, and maybe they have found some type of simplistic life up there that's able to survive. I don't think there's really intelligent life. I seriously doubt that. But that's my take on it.
I know.
Uh, I say explore. Go explore. Go find out. Go test what is normally thought to be the history of the universe right now by science. To go and debunk some of these because they will be debunked because we don't know everything. We only judging space from our armchair, which is Earth. That's not really, and I understand some serious science has been put into this, and I agree it has. But until you go there, it's like pro black. Well, I don't want to down pro black people. I know Dollar will get at me, but when people say Africa this, Africa needs to do this, but when you actually go there, you get another
Mm-hmm.
sense. So go explore.
Mm-hmm.
Go. Yes. I would prefer black people to have a hand in this in terms of doing our own thing. But yeah.
Yeah, and there's nothing saying that we can't have our own space program. So we've talked about this before. So
When you say your own space program, do you mean the entire diaspora or blacks in America? Like, who specifically are you referring to?
anybody who's melanated who wants to
Yeah.
contribute.
Yeah.
Because
Whoever's down, man.
I think the issue is the exorbitant cost of a space program. You need a large enough population to support a space program because you look at it, the average, the GDP in relative to countries that have space programs. These are usually countries who have a substantial GDP that actually engage in space exploration because a lot of the actual exploration doesn't yield anything. So a lot of it is just there's not like a return on the investment immediately. It takes a lot of trial and error before you actually produce something tangible from your space exploits.
Mm-hmm. Well, it actually creates industry, so it creates jobs. Um, we've done a whole hangout on space exploration several times, which is why tonight's hangout is called Space and Technology. We had to rename it because we covered so much um, space information and dissemination of news that we figured out that really doesn't cost that much to actually put a cube-based satellite into space, and that's something that black men can actually do on their own, um, if they so wanted to. Right? This actually talks about manufacturing of the cube satellite itself, the programming, the launching capabilities. There's various functions of putting a cube-based satellite into space that we actually discussed that can actually be done. Ghana did something like this back in 2013 or 2011, where they airlifted a satellite into space for temporarily, but they was actually able to do it. We also covered an article before where some high school students actually put a satellite into space very cheaply. It was a cube-based satellite, but the point of the matter is it can actually be done. So we know that the startup cost of something like this is anywhere between $5,000 to $25,000 bare minimum. That's something that black men actually spend just about at the strip club or on Jordans. So
you're right. Yeah.
I stand corrected because I guess maybe I'm thinking of space exploration as actually, boots on the ground, like an actual human being, going on some other planet. But when you talk about actually just sending up a satellite, I mean, there's definitely data that can be gathered, usable data that can be gathered even from something as rudimentary as a simple satellite put into orbit.
right, we had a whole hangout going over all this stuff. I'll probably have to dig through the archive and see what we talked about before. We'll link it
You know,
to your email. Go
I,
ahead, Paul Bryant.
I would also like to add that something that several theoretical physicists like to bring up: life on Earth comes from this planet. So everything that lives here is adapted to live here. Therefore, it is extremely arrogant and presumptuous to assume that life on other planets will look like us. All right. To assume that what we see in Star Trek and other movies, that everyone will be bipedal and our height and look like us and speak English. No, more than likely, I mean, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Life on other planets will be adapted to that specific planet. Therefore, we go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, do you think they have gills or something like that?
If it's very possible, if it's a planet entirely covered in water. That may sound ridiculous to people, but understand something. Life evolves adapted to that biosphere.
Hmm.
Okay, we and all the animal and plant life and even the aquatic life are adapted to this biosphere
Hmm.
because physically we all come from this biosphere. So again, I in no way, shape, form, or manner think that there is any intelligent life presently on Mars. However, at one time, clearly there was, and we also do not know if there was life on other planets within this solar system and other solar systems. And if there are, which there has to be, mathematically speaking, there has to be, they will be adapted to that individual planet. So we could see life forms that we cannot even comprehend because they are adapted to that biosphere as opposed to our biosphere.
And I,
Now, go ahead.
I want to put some out in terms of space exploration.
Hmm.
When asteroid mining becomes uh, feasible, a lot of these asteroids are worth millions and billions and trillions of dollars.
Hmm.
So that's going to create industry, like Mike said, and that's going to attract people that want to invest in your program to go and mine this asteroid that has this particular type of metal that's worth $500 billion or 200 a quarter of $1 trillion. So that's another idea also.
Hmm. And that's stuff that we've talked, super trips. That's stuff that we've talked about. Asteroids being worth trillions of dollars without actually being discovered or actually being mined, for that matter. They haven't even been mined yet. I think there's a country in Europe that actually makes a lot of money off of asteroid mining, or the probability of asteroid mining. I think like 1% of the GDP comes from space exploration and asteroid mining. So
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have done like individual research on asteroid mining and even mining on other planets, just just out of sheer curiosity. And I think especially in this age where we're rapidly advancing technology, it will actually become feasible. Right now, and I don't know if you guys are aware of the I believe it's like an ionic drive. Um, I forgot they develop an engine. It's like an ionic drive engine, and it uses like very very little energy to actually propel it.
hmm
And because the vacuum of space, not much energy is needed to set it in motion to move at a very rapid speed. So things like that, technology like that will facilitate the transport of raw minerals and materials from the asteroid back to planet Earth. Or what I probably foresee happening is that there'll have to be some type of mining process and refinement process to lessen the payload. So you'll have to kind of refine the raw minerals that you mine on the actual asteroid before you transport it to decrease the payload and make it cheaper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll probably stop more than likely at a certain type of space station, or they'll stop on the moon and create a base there and do all the processing there before they bring it back. Because there's so much of a time lapse and gravitational pull that's involved in that.
Well, Mike, you actually bring up an absolute great point. Um, refineries for mining can actually be built in space, because the beautiful thing about space is it's vast. You have the room to literally build facilities that are miles in length in every direction. You have the room. So space is not a concern. Size is not a concern.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're worried about energy uses, you can literally use either solar panels, or you can use fusion containment, or any one of another hydrogen cells, many different ways to power these things, you know. And to touch on something, a point that I believe was touched just before I joined, think about automation. Someone needs to build the things that are going to be automated. Someone needs to build the robots. And automation absolutely will take away the lowest skilled, lowest paying menial jobs first. But there are tremendous uh, fields that will not be replaced by automation for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
until we can actually have viable robots that can move and act and think exactly like humans.
Yeah, I mean, Paul, I mean, you've heard us talk about this, but
Yeah, you know what I'm talking.
this is stuff that we've beat into our hangouts over and over and over. I mean, what episode is this? 142,
Right, right.
and we've been beating this since probably since early last summer, since July.
Mhm.
You know, the space one in every three startups, Super Triz, is going to be a space startup. This is what we focus on. This is where our money should be invested into. This is where your education should be invested into. It's not about fixing computers at Best Buy. It's not about Boost Mobile and opening up a cell phone store and selling incense and romantic
Shea butter.
oils. What was that, Lionel?
Shea butter.
Yeah, it's not about shea butter.
Libation
This is where the
bottles.
industry. Yeah, pouring
Moroccan
out
argan oil.
What'd you say, Super Triz?
Moroccan argan oil.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See, and this is where it is, man. This is where we should be pumping our money into. Um, you're talking about we covered an article. We covered articles before, but China had a has multiple startups, space startups, last year that were being funded $5 million, $10 million, $20 million. They're going balls deep into this. Everybody who has their own nation state is going into their own corners, and they're saying, you know, this is where we stand, and this is going to be our biggest achievement. We haven't even had that discussion yet, so that's why we're having these discussions on the brain trust.
And I think a lot of the conversations get sidetracked with concern over the dynamic between the black man and the black woman.
Oh,
And that's part of the problem right there, is that, and obviously, controversy sells, so certain things garner more attention. Like when I look at the viewership, of your videos and actual subscriber base, is substantially less. Now, if you guys wanted to have 1 million subscribers, just talk about ratchet stuff all day, you'll have all the attention that you have, more attention that you could possibly handle. But when you talk about stuff that's actually going to advance the collective, nobody wants to listen. I just don't get it.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not something for
Oh, I can talk about some ratchet stuff. Did you know that President Maduro, he had the nerves to say, "I'm going to
We lost you,
That's
Lionel.
they see that type of ratchet stuff. They went.
We got to get to the next article, but the point of the matter is that's the focus that we're Black Men First channel, so that's what we focus on, and that's what we try to drive into the brains of brothers. We get to this next article. All right, this next one is from ScienceAlert.com. Scientists are investigating building a space station inside a giant asteroid. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's a wild possibility scientists are actually exploring: how to fit a space station inside an asteroid. Why would we attempt such a bizarre feat or astro engineering? Because the spin of the asteroid would create enough gravity for mining equipment to be effectively used, giving us a way to tap into rich minerals and deposits inside the celestial rock. In addition, researchers suggest the asteroid's rocky hull could also help keep the mining station safe from dangers of being out in space, cosmic ray radiation, and all. This crazy idea is just this crazy idea might just be possible, according to the new study from astrophysicists at the University of Vienna in Austria, who applied some advanced gravity models to a hypothetical asteroid measuring 500 meters by 390 meters. Quote, loads, loads resulting from centrifugal forces make a space station in the cavern of a mined asteroid feasible, write the researchers. Though there are a lot of unknowns here, the right dimensions and materials would need to be chosen, and the asteroid would need to be strong enough to support a space station. Quote, practical applications will crucially depend on knowing not only the composition, but also the internal structure of candidate bodies as a team. Quote, as missions of these asteroids seem inevitable for such studies, decisions on inhabiting such asteroids may only be possible after mining operations have started. While the dimensions of the asteroid used in the scientist models roughly match the same space rocks we've already observed, including 3757 Enneagle, 99942 Apophis, and 3361 Orpheus. Much of composition of these asteroids isn't known at the moment. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I think we get the gist of this.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we just talked about setting up mining stations or processing stations and refinement stations on the moon, so they weren't that far off. And according to this article, what do you think about this, Paul Bryant?
Well, this is something right along the lines that you guys have heard me talk about since we first met. I am excuse me. I'm someone who has been following space exploration and all the related areas of science therein. So if they're talking about building space stations and refineries on asteroids, I personally am of the mindset that to whatever degree some of this has already been done. I'm not saying that there are stations there right now, although there very well could be, but there is something that has already been done. All right. We have not seen, oh, it's not like when President Kennedy said we're going to put a man on the moon and there was no space program and there was nothing in place. Because even back then, Werner von Braun already had 10 years, 15 years to work on a space program before the president even said he wanted to put a man on the moon. So I say all that to say, without sounding too far out there, this is the future. As a species, as humanity, this is the future. So now, to bring it down to where the rubber meets the road, young Black men here in America should be putting their focus and their direction and their resources and their capital into space exploration, whether it's coding, science, technology, manufacturing, putting up those cube satellites. There is a vast array of areas and sectors directly related to space exploration that I think black men, black people as a whole really need to put their focus into. This is our future, and this is something that if you're not in if you're not in on this sector, you will be left behind, and you do not want to be left behind where it comes to space exploration.
Yeah, I was gonna this little geek out session for me. This this is out the show Expanse. You send people out there because a lot of these asteroids are in the asteroid belt. Excuse me, are in the asteroid belts. The asteroid belt is, of course, in between the planets of Mars and uh, uh, Saturn.
Hmm.
A lot is, I won't say trillions of asteroids out there of different compositions. Some are soft, some are hard, made of metal or different metal compositions.
Hmm.
Now, you find a few of them that are big that can hold, like the article said, hold the structural integrity of what you would need to build something out there, holding humans, holding being drilled into, holding um, and not exploding out in the middle of space, but holding these different things that you would constant docking, constant building, constant repairing. If you can find a couple of those, if there's one, there's a couple, at least a handful, then you that will set you up to go further out in space because a lot of these asteroids have water. A lot of these asteroids have the same mineral same makeup as Earth because what made up Earth are the things that make up Earth are in the solar system, are in space. Earth is made up of the things that are already in space. So you go out there and you find and you detect different asteroids because you're amongst the asteroids. So you can send off like a system to detect what asteroids have what asteroids have water, what asteroids have metal, what asteroids have different compositions that will help us make the rocket propulsion systems to go out further into the solar system or beyond the solar system, beyond what we normally see today. And that asteroid belt is billions of miles away, you know. So this is an idea. If you ever seen the show Expanse, it's just like this.
Complex.
Yo, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now, brother. What's going on?
Oh, okay. Nothing much, man. Hey, peace, everyone. Super Shiz, I never met you. Welcome. Information, man. Peace. Mr. Bryant,
Peace, brother.
I know. Peace, everyone. You
Oh,
know, I've always thought that you would actually use asteroids as like way stations, right? Like you'd actually dock on an asteroid, and based on the mineral compositions of the asteroid, they would determine like what its use is for. So some asteroids could be could you could basically use one asteroid, and because of what's on it, it becomes like a power station, right? Like it comes kind of like a midway power station that's like out in space. So it can serve as like a midway point based on its trajectory between this point, like a point A, and then like a point B, which is beyond that. So it'll be like the energy source in between the two, or it could be some sort of like carrier station. You might go there, drop something off, something else goes there, picks it up.
mhm.
So there's a number of angles as to asteroid exploration. It doesn't even necessarily have to be like energy related per se.
Mhm.
Hmm. But
Super
are you
Trades, do you have
saying that?
anything?
That's an actual concept that I hadn't thought of. Purpose basing the asteroids based on their composition. Yeah, some may have depending on what their composition is. Some may have uh, you know tungsten, and you may be able to use it for maybe weapons manufacturing, and other ones may be used for just for actual precious metals. If there's a possibility of having precious metals on some of these asteroids, maybe you mining for gold or whatever the case may
Iridium.
be. Iridium, yeah, that's another. I wouldn't consider it a precious metal, but it does have various uses because of its density. But yeah, my only question is when we're talking about asteroid mining. Uh, Now, I'm sure with the actual advancement of technology, uh, trans transport and travel back and forth between the asteroid belt and Earth would be considerably cheaper, but there's still an added cost to that. Um, so it would be more logical to have miners out for longer periods of time.
Hmm.
And my question is, have there been any advancements in technology related to warding off deconditioning related to extended stays in space?
We covered an article a few months ago that the Russians had discovered that your brain actually shifts around. If you're there in space for more than 180 days, your brain actually shifts around considerably, where it's like yolk inside of an egg.
Ooh,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not sustainable at all. At this point, it's not sustainable. And this is with all your modern technology. It's just not sustainable at all.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say this is go ahead, Lionel. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying you also covered an
Um,
article where it shows that it messes with your cell composition.
It,
Also,
okay.
it breaks it down because of the pressure. The pressure actually breaks it down twice as fast.
Yeah.
Let me can I ask a question because I'm listening and learning here.
Information man, welcome to the panel, brother. What's going on?
Thank you,
welcome.
brother. Sorry I haven't been coming through more often. Been doing a lot of stuff, but I'm gonna be definitely coming through more often, and I'm definitely looking forward to having you brothers on my channel next Sunday. And
Hmm.
I think a lot of the
Absolutely.
conversation that you're having, I want to repeat this conversation because I'm going to ask these kind of questions and have you brothers do exactly what you do here. Because, like Super Trez said, we need black folks, just folks on YouTube, they need to hear this information. Super Trez, you're right, brother. It is sort of a shame that when you have this kind of powerful information, that some of our people don't take to it. I can do videos that are educational and probably won't get that many views. But the fact of the matter is, those that are out there that want to hear this information, it will empower them. So keep doing what you're doing. But my question I wanted to ask, not to be too long winded, is what is the difference between the black biology of black people as it relates to space versus Europeans? Because there's been some cases where um, space travel does not impact the bones of someone of African ancestry because of there's theories around melanin and the universe in itself, the way the Earth was created. And when you look at dark matter, there's some that would say that believe in kinetic science that that's where black people come from. That we come from the universe. We come from the stars in a sense. The stars created us, and we are some of the most melanated people. I think that we are the ones that are built for space travel. Now, what do y'all think about that? Because I, what do you think? Am I far fetched?
Well, I'll say this from a physical standpoint, and
Yes, sir.
this has been proven. If you look at, let's start first with the plant kingdom. The
Okay.
darker something is, stronger and longer lived it is. Okay, if you look at roses, they're beautiful, but they're the most fragile of all flora. Okay, if you look at trees, they're dark, but they're the strongest and they're the longest lived. If you look at the animal kingdom, whales and elephants are the largest mammals on Earth, but they're also the longest lived. As you lighten up the color, the weaker, fragile, and shorter lived they are. Now, without just keeping it strictly proven science, all right, nowhere else. It has been proven. All other things being equal, uh, African descended people tend to have denser bone structure, denser muscle mass, tend to um, produce, tend to develop body mass faster, tend to develop muscle mass faster. Children develop and speak and walk at an earlier age. Now, uh, also the organs are stronger. Okay, which is why you see so many
Did we lose
young
Paul Martin?
children in DC. But to keep it strictly on topic, uh, propulsion and the creation of artificial gravity will solve a lot of the issues and also proper shielding because there are many forms of radiation out in open exposed space, so you need proper shielding. Also, chemical based propellants are inefficient and not viable for interstellar exploration. It takes too long. You also need to develop artificial gravity within a craft. If all three of those can be tackled, then long-term space exploration, in addition to mining within our solar system, then easily becomes viable. Now, graphene is an amazing product which has amazing weight-saving cap- capabilities. And as far as the mining other asteroids, there may be minerals and metals on some of these asteroids within and also beyond our solar system that have elements that don't even exist on this planet. We don't know until we go out there. So I
Okay.
hope I wasn't too long-winded
No,
in
it's all
my
right.
answer.
I got a question to ask. This is related to the moon. Are you all familiar with the fact that I think it was it China, some they landed on the darker side of the moon? What is your familiarity with that?
Yeah, they
With
sent a
that,
probe. They sent a
they
probe.
sent the probe. Yeah, they sent the probe. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Let me turn my. What are your thoughts? I don't want to get too off subject, but since we're talking about space and everything, I was curious to know what anyone's thoughts are about what their probe and what they did.
So we actually did a whole hangout on that when it happened. So we did a whole hangout on that.
Oh,
And
okay.
our I'll summarize what we kind of just talked about. And Lionel could probably follow up with it. Um, we we know that China is dead serious about this. This is not just about space exploration. They're going to militarize the moon for the most part. This is just the beginning. Now, many people have said, "Oh, well, the Americans had been there first, and why are the Chinese up there?" Well, the Chinese are trying to do um, for their people what Americans have done largely in the past, right? This idea of going to the moon and this big expedition is actually helping their people empower them from a cultural standpoint, but from a scientific standpoint, they're using that part of the moon um, for other reasons that they haven't really discussed. But from what I understand, they went to NASA to actually get some information on to help them to actually get up there, and NASA actually told them no. The U.S. government told them no. So then they went to other agencies and they got a lot of help. So and they did it at a significant cost, much cheaper than what the Americans would have done. So we see that this whole space exploration thing could end up leading into Star Wars as well. So
Yeah, and as more and more countries and nation states and so forth do exploration, and like Mike said a few minutes ago, 1 and 3 stars in the future will be a space startups, and more people get into this industry, the cheaper it's going to be to go into space. The cheaper it's going to be to launch things into space because right now you have SpaceX, Elon Musk, SpaceX. It's a reusable rockets. It's more of a payload delivery rocket. So you build whatever you want to build and sign up and you pay a portion of what it costs to send your payload along with any other people that are in that uh, payload delivery zone to go into space. It could be a CubeSat rocket or not a rocket, but a satellite. Now with China, you have to understand what China is. China don't do things significant. They don't make big waves of news. They do things methodically and along a specific aligned pace. So yeah, they went on the dark side of the moon. That's dark side of the moon. That's big. That's huge. No one has ever gone there, to my knowledge. Paul may say something different, but to my knowledge, no one has ever gone there. But that's about it that you're going to hear from them for a very long time. Then they're going to say, well, China did this, China did that. So I agree with Mike. They're going to militarize space. And all this talk when Donald Trump talked about a space force, people laugh, but they dead serious. You know, you're going to need this in the future.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I just wanted to answer Information Man's question, I guess, about the nature of melanated folks in space. I mean, I mean, to take kind of like a futurist perspective on it, technology has kind of even laying the playing field, if you will, for human exploration at this point, right? So pretty much anyone's getting up and getting out if they have the means to do so. I don't think it's anything. There could be individuals here on this planet suited, maybe from a biophysical uh, uh, position on it, they might be more suited for it. But from a technological standpoint, there may be others that have accommodated for any sort of those gaps or whatever it was that kept them out before or whatever. If we're presupposing this, then it's at a point now where technologically we're on the playing field, because going forward, this will be the domain largely of AI. This will be the domain of largely of AI and robotics and all that type of stuff. Any majority of stuff that's going to get sent and deployed out will be things of an autonomous nature. These things will all be automated as far as the technology that'll be deployed. Any sort of transaction methods will probably be crypto based, or more than likely be crypto based. I think we even covered some time ago space cryptos. Um, uh, so it'll be that, and then what'll happen is that there will be the version space. Richard Branson's company. There'll be like the
Virgin
SpaceX's,
Galactic.
Virgin Galactic. Yeah, it'll be some of the of those space startups that'll then have the vehicles to actually then take people from point A to point B. But a lot of the space infrastructure development that will become the new industry that'll begin to roll out, or is beginning to roll out, is not going to be done. The work isn't going to be done by humans.
Yeah, for the most part, it won't be. You're
Yeah.
talking about, the robot that we discussed before that jumped up the stairs line, though, and did a backflip and a somersault. Um, that sort of robotics is going to be what you need to be up there on different planets. You're not sending humans up there anytime soon,
Mm-mm, no.
for the most part.
Yeah.
They haven't
You
sent
know,
humans to Mars. The Mars rovers aren't. Look, they sent an entire they sent an entire observatory lab, right? So we've already seen this. They sent an entire observatory lab, right? Send it up into space, right? Then there was a capsule that got into the trajectory to get it over to Mars, and then again, the whole automated process took place. It came down into the atmosphere, huge air bag around the payload, right? Then once it geolocates itself and finds out its spatial positioning, right? It'll roll over, right? Rolls over onto its base, and then it deploys. It opens up, everything rolls out, everything gets on its own. The rovers get to going, everything comes online. No humans. Well, they were in the control room in what, Florida or wherever they were.
Hmm.
Tesla is developing a manned Mars vehicle to send men to Mars and bring them back in that vehicle. And I'm not talking about the Falcon lift vehicle. This is a separate vehicle. Mike, I actually meant to send you the link so you could go over that
Hmm.
at your leisure. I will do so immediately after the hangout. But
We'll put it on a docket for next week's hangout.
okay, cool. All right.
Uh,
And really quick, I would just like to just throw one thing out there. At this point, I don't think any one particular group has a
right.
right to anything. At
Hmm.
this point,
About.
it's up for grabs. So just go forth and
Prosper.
apply yourselves and prosper.
Well,
And
well, well,
that's
Paul,
my
that that was going to kind of, I was going to round out what I was saying with that, with that point right there. Given you were talking, the deployment of automated and robotic technologies, there's no race on that one. There's no racial face to that. Um, and then when we get into the realm of space exploration, just understand that it won't just be like nations that will be claiming uh, galactic property out there. You're going to have companies that are going to be claiming asteroids, right?
Exactly.
And then those asteroids will become their own uh, dominions out in space with its jurisdiction and everything. That's not necessarily tied into a nation state here on this planet. So you just got we got to yeah.
It,
Go ahead,
it,
Mike.
it may it may not be tied into a nation state, but it will invite piracy.
Oh yeah.
You'll see some space wars start to happen.
Hmm.
I mean, it may
Hmm.
not be some guys in a Tie Fighter jet, space jet, but it will be some form of autonomous drones trying to shoot down another drone
Yep.
in that aspect to get those resources and actually put their flag on it.
Oh, sure.
Hence Bush. Hence Trump's push to
Freudian slip.
militarize space.
Hmm.
Right.
But see, that's the thing that fears me, gentlemen,
Hmm.
is the fact that if you look at our planet and how militarized our planet has become, with the United States spreading itself all over the place, trying to control resources, I don't see space being any different. It's going to be about the survival of the fittest, who can control the resources, who can manipulate those resources,
Hmm.
and then those that are more off will benefit from those resources. When you talk about mining materials from on asteroids, then when you talk about who's got the right to go to space, who's going to be able to go to space, um, those I'm kind of concerned because we're really doing a lot of damage to the planet that we live on right now. So, could they possibly be trying to focus on space as the next frontier of where they need to go once this planet is depleted or destroyed or what have you? I
Well,
know it sounds conspiratorial, but hell,
no, that's
anything's possible.
the Majestic 12 argument that part of the Majestic 12 plan was to develop spacefaring technology so that once all the resources on this planet are completely used up, a certain group or a certain groups will basically hop on ships and leave. And at some point, when humans can come back, they will come back. So I understand where that comes from. That is not a new theory or concept. That is a concept that actually goes back to the 1950s. But as far as what you said, as far as exploitation of resources and war out in space, you know, no, you're right. That is the human nature. That is what human beings are. Until we as a species, so we as a race, and I mean the human race, because there's only one race, but until we as a human race evolve to the point of complete and true altruism, that is a part of the nature of humanity. So, at the cost of sounding flippant, which I'm not, it is what it is, and things won't change. So the same issues and problems that we have here, and trying to deal with and mitigate those issues, we will have the same problems and issues in space as that opens up.
It's interesting that you bring that up, Paul, about only one race being the human race. I was having a conversation with this gentleman not too long ago when I was at the Museum of Science,
Right.
and this pale-faced gentleman basically said, what if something is up there? Let's go up there and colonize it. Colonize that word. The sort of language, the linguistics that go into their mindset when they think about going out there. You don't really hear Africans or melanated people talking like that. We don't
You're
talk
right.
like that. We don't use that language. It's not something that's germane to us. So.
You're right. No, Mike, you're right, and I agree with you on that 1,000%. Okay, I do not have rose-colored glasses.
Hmm.
You're right. I say again, there's only one race, human race. But again, we all understand the reality and the condition of the way things are now and how we all as a species live. So to do otherwise, I'll leave that to other certain groups who like to, paint things for what they're not.
Hmm.
But let me say this. I don't want to sound UFO or ET, but however, the universe is vast. I don't personally believe that we're the only life in the world.
Hmm.
And if we think that we're going to control space, I'm just saying that there's a chance that humans may experience something that we're not ready to comprehend. We may think that we own the universe, and we may find out that somebody else says, no, no, no,
Well,
we're in charge.
I'll say this, and these are things that you can kind of look up, because there's a realm, um, depending on how far you want to go with this. I mean, there's going to be realms of legal thought as it relates to all things jurisdiction. So in this instance here, we're talking about the dominion of space, and we're talking about exopolitics. Okay, so that's a political field of study,
Hmm.
right? Like things like galactic treaties, stuff like that. You know,
That's going to be written in smart contracts through the blockchain.
exactly. Right. So there's actual technologies right now that deal with what used to be theoretical questions. Okay, now there's a technology that can be applied to dealing with these things. Right. So like you got one firm that lays claim to an asteroid, right? Asteroid C12457, blah 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 blah, right? And then next thing you know, you get some sort of transmission from some off faring vessel that
Hmm.
basically states that you've entered into the domain of such and such and such and such. Okay, well, how would you theoretically adjudicate a claim? Like let's just say, for example, you have a terrestrial land claim, right? Your neighbor says, "Oh, you're encroaching on my property,"
Hmm.
and then you say, "Ah, no, actually, that demarcation line, man, that's mine right here, right? So let's take the asteroid out of space. You make the claim on it, and then some other civilization says, what are you talking about? That rock came off of our home planet 10 Remulon years or something ago or something, right?
Right,
Hmm.
right.
Exactly.
That's
We
that's
already
that's actually a great point that you make because they found that theory that um, humans may not actually be from Earth. That the DNA may have traveled on an asteroid when it hit Earth, and that asteroid brought the DNA with it.
Hmm.
I think we covered in an article.
That's powerful. That's powerful.
You know,
It's
I gotta
it's
check
a
that
good theory.
article out.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the article information, man. We covered that in one of
Yeah,
our hangouts.
Yeah,
that's
which
wow,
which
that's
comes
amazing.
back to what I was speaking about earlier because NASA had NASA released hundreds of pictures 15, 20 years ago. They did a flyby over Mars.
Hmm.
They found the remains of a city. They found pyramids, and they found a giant face carved into a mountain.
Wait a minute,
Similar to the
repeat
Sphinx.
that, brother. Repeat
I'm
what
sorry?
you just said. Repeat that. I need to like focus my ears. Say that again. That's very powerful. Say
Okay,
that again, brother.
NASA, 15 to
Hmm.
20 years ago, NASA performed a flyby on Mars, and
Okay.
they sent back pictures, hundreds of pictures. They found the remains of a city. I say what looks like the remains of roadways and structures and
Oh wow.
foundations for buildings. They found
Hmm.
pyramids and they found a massive face carved into a mountain, where the face is
Okay.
looking up. So it's not looking across the horizon. The face. So from
Okay.
space, you're looking down from space, and there's a face
Hmm.
looking back up at you, and the face
Okay.
does not look human. It is humanoid. There's two
Okay.
eyes and what looks to be a nose and a mouth. So
And
Okay.
all
And when you look at ancient Kemetic societies like Egypt, Kemet, as we know is the original name, there's some that say that the way that civilization was built was it was more it was the that the civilization was has the most what you would call um extraterrestrial type of design to it, or if we would say, and that it's in perfect perpendicular to the universe, the way everything is operating in our solar system. So
Well,
I
Oh,
find
brother,
that very interesting.
you're talking esoteric stuff now.
well,
Yeah,
I know,
a little bit.
specifically, well,
but I'm hearing the parallels to what he just said about Mars, and then when I look at civilizations that we have on the planet
Hmm.
that have created things like statues in the earth and
mm,
pyramids, I find it fascinating. That's why I
Yeah,
said that.
yeah. The face that Paul is referring to is similar to what you see on Easter Island.
Wow.
and
Maori. Yeah.
and what you're referring to, the the placement of the three Great Pyramids on the Giza Plateau, they line up perfectly with the belt of Orion. Okay, so
Yes.
that's what you referring to. As far as the design and implementation of many of the things in Egypt, um, there are many people who speak about ancient Kemetic science and a few other things, and we can absolutely go into that. But there were many of those things that were done by humans. Okay, a lot of things that were attributed to outside influence that were performed by humans.
Mm.
Some things clearly, given the state of technology at the current time, you can point to you can point to alien influence, but other things that are attributed to alien influence, if you are a true student of the esoteric schools of knowledge,
Hmm.
all right, it leads you to, it points clearly and it's taught that they were done by humans. And many of these things can also be done and accomplished by humans. Okay, so that's as far as I'll lightly touch on that for now, in the interest of just keeping the conversation going.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just get to this next article
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
low on time.
Okay.
All right, this next one is from TheVerge.com. The company that promised a one-way ticket to Mars is bankrupt. Mars One Ventures, the company that claimed it was going to send hundreds of people to live on the red planet, is now bankrupt, according to Swiss financial notices. It's an unsurprising development, as many experts suspected that Mars One has been a scam for years, preying on people's desires to travel to space without having a real plan to get them. News of the liquidation first came to light over the weekend, thanks to Redditor, who spotted a notice for the company's bankruptcy on the website for the city of Basel, Switzerland, where Mars One's parent company is based. The source indicated that there's a bit of an error there, that the city declared the company bankrupt on January 15th, which then dissolved the organization. Mars One's creator, Baz Lansdorp, confirmed the news to Engadget and told the publication he was working to find a solution. He noted that the nonprofit arm of Mars One, the Netherlands-based Mars One Foundation, was still alive but lacks investment to do anything. Late this afternoon, Mars One posted an update to its website saying that the commercial arm is, quote, currently working on a solution with an investor. The company also reiterated that the nonprofit is still functioning. Quote, the bankruptcy only involves Mars One Ventures AG and does not affect the financial position of Mars One Foundation, which is the driving force behind the mission. The company wrote in the post, quote, the Mars One Foundation is actively continuing its efforts to secure funding for the mission next steps, either through the listed company or directly into the foundation. So yeah, you're gonna have, just like in, the cryptocurrency world, you have shit coins. You also gonna have, shit organizations who are faking a funk. This doesn't really
Dude, a
surprise
one-way
me.
ticket to Mars. Like, okay, it's like selling a bridge. I got what's that saying? Oh, I got a bridge to sell you, and you name some place that doesn't have a bridge.
Hmm.
Total Recall.
I mean, just I don't know. I'm just looking at the business model of a one way ticket to Mars, like as your startup concept.
I'm glad it was those people and it wasn't some brothers trying to sell you homeboys, homeboys in outer space or something like that.
Bean pie on Mars, my brother.
Mm, Assalamu alaikum, right? But yeah, anybody have anything they want to add to this? Super Tris, you've been quiet.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, I was just listening in on the actual. I didn't realize they were actually selling a one-way ticket to Mars. Like that, to even fall for that, like there is nothing on Mars. Like once you get there, what are you gonna do? You know, you have like a couple 30 minutes of oxygen. Then what are you gonna do? You know, it just really kind of mind-boggling that people actually fell for that. You know, I'm surprised I haven't seen that as a Nigerian email scam.
Oh
But
man.
maybe it's coming. Who knows?
Hmm.
Really quick,
Yes,
I don't
sir.
know if you guys are aware, but the world famous Nigerian prince, he was some white guy.
Wait, what?
Oh, the email. Oh,
The email scam, the Nigerian prince. He wasn't even from Nigeria. He was some white guy
Oh,
based
okay,
here.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing about cybersecurity. Everybody always claims that oh, it's the Russians doing this and it was the Chinese doing that. You don't know who's behind that
You
computer.
know
Yeah,
who's doing it. Yeah.
you don't know who's doing anything. So, information man, you have anything you want to add? I know.
I would say,
Sorry
yeah,
about
they were
that, brother. I
selling.
was just doing.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, brother. I had
Oh,
to step away for a moment. I
oh.
was doing something with my daughter, but go ahead. I'm.
I would say, yeah, they were selling. They were, duping people selling this, but the people that were actually signing up for this, it goes to show that people are ready to fly into space and do something and extend the human life beyond Earth.
Hmm.
Because I'm pretty sure they said a one-way ticket, and people knew it was one-way ticket, and they knew they was going to go there and stay. So,
Yeah, but I mean, you gotta have a place to go to first.
well, no, no, I'm not talking about it being a scam. I'm talking about the people that will sign up for this, knowing it's a one-way ticket, that they're ready to go.
Oh no, I'm just saying with that though. I mean, where would they be going though? I mean, I would have considered it had there been like some sort of, Mars-based hotel accommodation or something, or I don't know. I mean, it was just kind of like it's conceptual. There's nothing there to go to,
Right.
right?
That's
To
Well,
the
be
point.
according to the image that was on the screen, it looked like there was some kind of Airbnb set up on Mars for them.
oh,
But
looks nice.
but even then, it's not nowhere near Earth accommodations. So you're when
Yeah,
you're going up there, it's not going to be nothing that's going to be built out brick and mortar. They knew when they go up there, it was going to be tough, and they said, "Well, I'm going to go anyway." So those people that are ready to do this,
Unless they're being sold a dream that they could be modern day homesteaders, that they're gonna go there,
oh
they're gonna
no,
First
build.
colonizers.
Right,
yeah,
correct. They're gonna
yeah.
mill the land, and they're gonna discover whatever needs to be discovered, and they're gonna be on the ground floor of whatever's
no,
going to be
no,
built
come
and
on,
stuff
there.
like that.
They
Hey,
cannot
listen,
think that.
I
They
I
you
don't.
got you got to
But
be serious
but
because
These are
these guys,
Europeans you're talking about.
what
yeah,
I
is
was
and
is
you're
trying
talking
not to
of
go there, Mike, but
it's
you're
going to
right.
take
and
decades and a couple hundred years just to terraform Mars. Even if people want to terraform Mars, it's going to take at least multiple decades, turn into hundreds of years just to terraform Mars.
Wait,
How can
so you're
somebody
saying
think? Go
so
ahead.
you're
the
saying that there isn't a giant mountain full of oxygen in the form of ice that the aliens left to
I don't see
terraform
how
the planet?
people can think they're going to go up there and say, "Well, yeah, we're going to be the first ones to grow cotton and some crap like that."
But
Come on.
you know that people are very naive, brother. These are not experienced astronauts going up there who have an understanding of the science they're getting themselves into, and people are being thrown the bone that hey, you can be the first to go here. And like brother said, they think that they're pioneers, and in their minds, they could think that well, it won't be that long before they can build something then we can go back and forth to Earth. And people have a lot of fantasies more than you believe, brother. So
I
Well,
want
Why
to
not?
you're right that they're not astronauts. They're more like astronauts. Right.
I want to ask a question to the panel. Now that we're on this subject, when we talk about terraforming, some of the things that are needed to terraform, obviously, you would need some type of organic matter, which would probably already be there if there was previous life on Mars. The atmosphere is the problem. Not much of an atmosphere there at all. So you would need to actually start producing some type of biosphere to contain the atmosphere to even cultivate life there and
You got
maybe
to get the core going again. If Mars core isn't spinning, the reason the atmosphere is gone is because
the
it was
gravitational field
right
and
because it was
radiation belt and all that good stuff.
yeah because it was stripped away. The magnetic field is weak, which means Mars core isn't spinning enough to form that magnetic field to strengthen the
Well, the
atmosphere.
core may be cool. What if the core is completely cooled off? Who knows? I mean,
Yeah,
I
but
don't know,
we
but
don't.
I'm
Yeah,
thinking
but we don't know that. I know that theory. That's not a fact. That's a theory. That I know that was taught in school. I was taught that in school back as a little boy in the '70s. That's never been proved in fact. That's a theory. We don't know what's at the actual core of every planet.
Well,
We don't know.
well,
I,
and
I
then
was gonna say it's also kind of hard. Like think about okay, so think about that, right? Like what you're doing is as a terrestrial based organism, right? That's making its observations about its own environment. You then make a determination as to uh, the sort of like the biological nature of another entity in space. Okay, and I guess what you're trying to do is trying to make it like a comparative analysis in terms of uh, in living environments. Okay, the fact of the matter is that if you were to take something out of one living environment and put it into another, over time it will evolve to be able to adapt and live in that environment. So whatever that environment is, right, and it's so in its current modern day context, right. So if you're talking about Mars, you'd be talking about colonization and terraforming in such a way where it's going to account for the current conditions that exist there, right? So if for whatever reason there's atmospheric issues that prevent like just planting of trees, right? That means that, let's just say that some other things, some biochemical reactions have to take place in the environment first to kickstart the process. So let's just say like in another 150, 200, 300 years, then you'll be able to plant trees. Okay. See, so your plan for terraforming is largely going to be based upon like a true assessment of the planetary environment, one, and then two, are you bringing flora and fauna and stuff like that from like Earth?
Exactly, exactly. Because I don't know how many of you guys saw the movie The Martian with Matt Damon. That
I
movie
saw
was
that.
largely based on what a lot of scientists predict need to be done,
Mm-hmm.
and that algae and other bacteria have to be transported to Mars to produce to produce something that flora can feed on to
Yeah.
grow, whether that's carbon dioxide or oxygen. So you're literally terraforming the planet from scratch, but that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I
decades,
was saying.
Yeah,
decades.
your plan for terraforming. Like, put it like this: you would the way in my mind how it would work is you send a payload out. Maybe this would even circle back to Information Man's earlier question, right? So, like, I would do something where if I had a space firm, like I wouldn't even my plan in my business plan like there I wouldn't be sending humans out to wherever we were going to be going probably for like 300-400 years, right? Like the first 300-400 years of my company would largely be automated payloads sent out to perform terraforming tasks, but these terraforming tasks are actually going to take some years to roll out before you could do like the next phase of the project. So there might be
Well,
50-year
I
gaps and
would
stuff
I
like
would
that.
be of the assumption, and I agree with what you just said.
Oh, Paul, you broke out there.
But you all saying what I was saying. So what's
Designers, just to fix and maintain, make sure things are going well as caretakers, but then they climb back into their vehicle and they leave. So for the most part, yeah, it's automated and there are no people there other than the set maintenance periods.
Mhm.
okay? Now you would still need an atmosphere to protect whatever is there that you're using to terraform it.
It kind of depends. Like what? Okay, so what if the atmosphere? You determine that the atmosphere isn't suitable, right? For without being, an enclosed or an encapsulated environment, right? An enclosed environment. Maybe that's just what the planet is going to require. So your approach to terraforming may be different. What you're going to then do maybe is you're going to
Biodomes,
isolate resources and then build structures, right?
right?
You
Biodomes.
build structures, right? Biodomes, and then basically civilization on that planet is going to exist in biodomes as opposed to just
Who
out
the
in the open.
fuck want to live in a biodome all their life? I don't fuck that shit. No.
Why? Most niggas live in jail, so we ain't gonna have that big a problem.
Oh
But they
no!
still go outside for an hour. I'm
Or
not
rec
I
trying to live in
time.
a bio.
understand.
Well,
I
we did. We had if you guys recall, we had there was an experiment. I think it was done in Arizona, and it was called bio. What was that thing called? Biodome. It was a
biodome, right?
biodome project.
Yeah,
Biodome project.
they
Yeah, I
made a
think it only
movie out of
lasted maybe like 2 years before they shut it down.
Mhm.
it. That's what
They
I
have one in
said.
Hawaii too. They have one in Hawaii too. Hey, let me get to this next article real quick. Let me fly through these before we run out of time. Next one is from WallStreetJournal.com. SoftBank invests $940 million in Neuro for driverless deliveries. Startup is building robotic vehicles to deliver groceries and other items from the street. SoftBank Group Group Corp's giant tech fund is investing about almost $1 billion in a robotic delivery vehicle startup, a hefty injection of capital that could help accelerate the race to put driverless vehicles on the road. Neuro Incorporated raised $940 million from SoftBank's nearly $100 billion tech-focused Vision Fund, the startup said Monday. Founded in 2016, Neuro is now valued by investors at $2.7 billion. Just put me behind a paywall because I think we spent too much, then we didn't have enough time. But this tells you where the market is going for autonomous vehicles at the moment. You have a startup that's valued at $2.7 billion. You have Bird Scooters that's been valued at $2 billion. And numerous other. I think Waymo is valued at a couple of $1 billion too. So we see where the market is going. This is which is kind of skills you're going to need for developing autonomous driving stacks using artificial intelligence and machine learning and things like TensorFlow as well as Python.
And not only what the industry is going, but who who in the industry is going with it? Because SoftBank, that's a Japanese firm, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
They are in everything. It seems like a third of what we cover they are in.
they're venture
They have
capitalists.
Yeah.
they have invested in that fund that the golly, it said the fund is worth $100 billion, and they only gave them what, a 904 million.
Yeah,
So
they control T-Mobile and Sprint.
Mhm.
they control who?
T-Mobile and Sprint.
T-Mobile. We covered
Golly,
SoftBank. Remember, man. We were just talking about extended business models, man. Theirs goes
three
out
hundred
500.
year plan.
Theirs is 500.
No,
SoftBank's is
no, who?
500.
Mhm.
Golly, man, $100 billion fund. Just that's not what they're. That's not all their money. It said a fund, a startup fund or something like that, right? $100 billion,
Mhm.
100 billion. B with a B, Bravo. So they have other money allotted to other things.
Well,
So now you have them pouring. If they're pouring this much money and they have a 500-year plan into autonomous vehicles, you better believe autonomous vehicles are going to be on the street in mass within the next couple of years.
Mhm.
well, if you look at Audi is rolling out the e-tron, Porsche is bringing out their E version of the 911. Every manufacturer is making a huge point towards electronic vehicles. And I'd like to make mention to a point that I made on the hangout we did this past Saturday. Depending on which academician you talk to, they say thank you, anywhere from 70 to 93% of all engineering graduates in the United States of America right now are
Chinese.
foreigners.
Hmm.
Not necessarily Chinese, but foreigners.
Seemed like it though, but yeah,
Whether
okay.
yeah,
I apologize, but you're right. You're right.
no, whether it's actually a lot come from India here in the U.S., but China, India, other countries. The point is, the point that I'm trying to make is that the same way that a lot of these foreign-born students are coming here for graduate studies in engineering, I am of the personal mindset that black youth and black men and women need to do the same thing, specifically in these fields. Okay, need to be, instead of trying to work on that jump shot or try to open up a barber shop or try to open up a nail shop, look into these emerging technologies. This is the future. These technologies, space exploration, these are the areas where black people need to be focusing. Okay, going to engineering schools, going to computer science schools, IT tech schools, pooling resources, opening up trade schools, so you can be the person building this technology, or the person designing the technology, or the person engineering the technology, or designing and or building the machinery that's going to build the products for these
Supply chain.
fields. Blockchain, there you go, perfect. And you
No,
know,
supply chain. Supply chain.
thank you. Yes. So supply chain, because the days of vertical integration are gone. All right. No one company manufactures something from raw material all the way through to final product. So there is a vast array of sectors along that chain, along the supply chain, that you can put your focus into. And for whatever reason, black people are more comfortable marching and protesting and talking about hair weave and things that are
Oh
of
my God,
zero
you about to irritate me. You about
substance.
to trigger me tonight, Paul.
You know what?
You about to trigger me tonight.
You're
Trust
gonna,
me,
I know about the
as
term rice gum.
you're hitting
man.
these
You about
triggers.
to, man.
I,
Oh,
I feel a 25-hour hangout devoted to weave about to jump off.
I just want to share my screen real quick because I think this is actually relevant because we covered this before, but we have new guests on, so want them to be aware as well. There's a site called edx.org that we rant and rave about um, for cheap education, so you don't have to be in have student loan debts hovering over your head or being weighed down by them. And there are actually accredited courses for these sort of topics that we discuss. You can actually get degrees in them, and it doesn't cost a whole lot. It costs less than a pair of Jordans. So
yeah. Oh, go
this
ahead.
one is called Emerging Automotive Technologies, and this goes over um, all of the necessary areas of autonomous driving, such as design and simulate electric and hybrid powertrains, understand the fundamentals of passive and active safety concepts, model and simulate vehicle dynamics, implement intelligent perception and decision procedures needed for self-driving cars. These are the sort of it already started January 10th, 2019.
Are you able to share this link in the Hangout chat?
Yes, I can do that.
Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I've taken courses on that. The last one I took was blockchain for business, offered by the Linux Foundation.
Hmm. And looking at this right here, they slashed the price from $1,400 to $1,260. The amount of effort that you need is 10 to 20 hours per week. A lot of brothers on these hangouts spend 8 hours inside of a hangout talking about nothing.
Hey,
So,
Mike, don't.
well, this is our platform.
I,
We'll
I got
assert
no.
ourselves as we see fit. Average length is 6 to 8 weeks per course. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just about less than 10 courses um, that you need to take. All of it is enough to get you either a job at Ford or to help you start your own business.
Yeah.
I would drop this in the chat.
We are.
You know what? And exactly the things that we were talking about this past Saturday night's hangout, what we have been discussing in this hangout, and things that you gentlemen here in the Black Brain Trust have been covering from day one. Okay, emergent technologies and future technologies are the way forward. It's the way forward for humanity as a whole. So for whatever reason, too many black people are comfortable shouting and yelling and protesting and marching and begging for respect and talking about hair weave. Those are things of zero substance, zero importance, zero relevance. Okay, if you take the mindset that things need to change and how can we build this and or how can we do that, you know what? Here is your roadmap. Here is your roadmap. Instead of complaining and begging for respect, power only respects power. You must create power. Okay? And the way to do that is to start from the ground up, create your intellectual, financial capital and power, which will then translate to your political power. Okay? There is your roadmap. Rant over.
All right, let me get to this next one. Or Information Man or Super Triz, did you have anything you wanted to add before I move on?
No, carry on.
Okay, sir. All right, this next one is from VentureBeat.com. Andela will use artificial intelligence to pair African developers with high-growth startups. Andela, a company that connects developers in Africa with growing U.S. startups like SeatGeek and Headspace, will incorporate artificial intelligence into its recommendation engine to create better matches between talent and employers. Quote, "We are working on the algorithms now, and I expect it to be an active part of how we operate by the end of this year," Andela CEO Jeremy Johnson told VentureBeat in a phone interview. Last month, the company raised $100 million in a round led by Al Gore's Generation Investment Management, one of the largest venture-funded rounds ever for a startup operating in Africa. Bringing machine intelligence to its recommendation engine and making new tools to help managers evaluate the performance of remote engineering teams and employees will be a main focus of the building, Johnson said. The recommendation engine will be trained on data Andela has collected from developers since it was founded in 2015. Quote, "We have 60 different assessments that are part of an application process, and so there's a ton of data. Um, Psychographic as well as behavioral on who people are and what they're able to do, what they like doing, and different personality types," Johnson said. Quote, these are going to drive not just where people are placed, but also who's accepted into Andela. Using AI to recommend developers to businesses isn't new. Last fall, HackerRank released the Tech Talent Matrix, a tool that uses machine learning trained by more than 7 million skill assessments tests to help companies evaluate developers. Andela will take a different approach, factoring in assessments from roughly 130,000 applications, as well as data gathered during 6 months training course each developer will participate in. To join Andela, a developer must first pass a rigorous competency assessment test. The company says that less than 1% of the applicants are accepted. Once selected, each Andela developer takes part in a 6 month training program to strengthen technical and soft skills. Additional training material is provided to determine the individual's learning velocity and how quickly they respond to feedback and are able to iterate. So, this is like one of the brothers that's from the platform. So, um, we
Yes.
talked about this. We talked about this before that Africa is light years ahead. Well, I shouldn't say light years ahead, but they're at least 10 years ahead of Black people in America in terms of tech startups and innovation. We covered a hangout last month about digital transformation in Africa, where you had people, Black people, who did not have paved roads and continuous electricity, were able to write code and develop apps on their phones and so on and so forth. You don't see that really happening here on the ground in America.
And you're saying
It,
in Africa that's becoming very popular?
it,
Becoming popular, they're ahead of the curve in
yeah,
terms of African Americans here. I agree with Mike. I would even say they're probably even a few more years. I just saw a dude who built a damn drone, a
mhm.
fly like a personal drone. Okay, so they're not allowing the perceived limitations around them to limit their imaginations.
Yeah.
And with regards to the app development, yeah, it's more of a robust startup environment and startup tech culture there with
Yeah.
regards to that as opposed to here.
Too often we don't unfortunately, I don't know, we don't gear our youth towards tech industry as much as we should. It's always through, we're always pushing the social sciences, um, you know,
Athletics.
yeah, athletics. Teaching is an honorable profession, but we need to gear our kids. Tutorial program that I work in in the community. We bring brothers in that are professionals like yourself, so that young black males in particular can see people who look like them that are doing stuff in science, medicine, and what have you. We need to emphasize that. We need to put our kids and have them spend the time in this type of knowledge, the time that we're making them spend in football and basketball and things of that nature. We need to reverse engineer what we're doing with our kids.
Hmm.
Well, I was going to
Hey,
say the technology. It's not as if it's not familiar to them,
Mm.
because really what it is, it's that the technology is largely taught from a consumer standpoint. Like you're
That
taught to use it as a consumer, and you're not taught to approach it as like a developer.
hmm
two things. In that article, there was a clickable link to the program.
Hmm.
It's only for Africans. Well, damn. Well, continental Africans, I should say.
Oh, it's not for ADOS. Hmm.
Fuck them. It is it. I'm saying, is it for is it just for continental Africans
That's
or
fine.
diasporans?
My understanding, I think it's geared towards anybody who would be of African descent, because
Okay,
it
well,
seems to be in America too.
go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that I think it's geared towards anybody of African descent.
There's a clickable link in that article that goes to their website, and I don't know if you want to put that in the link. Well, you know what? I can put it in a link. I got a wrench. I forgot. But also, um, Udacity.
Yes.
I'm taking a Python class there, the nano degree, and Udacity. I'll put both links in there. Udacity is where you can, one, not the only, but where you can go to learn coding skills also. Because I don't want to sit here and say, well, we don't do this, we don't do that. We just read an article that has a link in it. So
Hmm.
I want to put these links in the description so people who are listening to this live or on the playback can click on the links and actually go to these places.
Yeah, I just want to share this my screen real quick so that to emphasize what Information Man was saying, that we do have something called NISB, which is National Society of Black Engineers. And you're looking at the website right now. They they focus on what we actually talk about from a development level and from a professional level. So they do have tracks in place to help kids from kindergarten all the way up until senior level high school
Yes.
um, have a track to get into STEM.
Yes. I have some college friends who are a part of the organization. I'm very familiar with Nesby. That's very true, brother. They
Yes,
are
I'm
doing.
I'm a part of it myself, so I'm actually a
Oh,
member.
okay. Well then, well.
Yep. So you ignore potential. It's one of those things. We're not doing enough. So, but that's why we have the Black Brain Trust.
That's right. That's right.
Ooh, yeah.
um, definitely.
Click. Oh, and you dash. You know what? I'm a. That's got a school of programming, school of artificial intelligence. Those are. We're talking about artificial intelligence tonight. So, Andela, I'll put the Andela link in right now, and then after that, I'll put in both Udacity's School of Programming, and then after that, the School of Artificial Intelligence.
Yeah, I also put in the chat there the link. Lionel, this is the channel I was telling you about on YouTube, Free Code Camp. The guy who just does like these
Yeah, it's a good
5 and
site.
8 hour long tutorials on coding.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I posted that
Pass
in
the
there too.
knowledge. Pass the knowledge,
Okay.
brother. Pass the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Super Trish, you have anything you want to add?
I'm just listening in at the moment.
Okay, well, let me go on to the next one then. This one is from CoinTelegraph.com. Bitfury's new partnership to build blockchain-based medical imaging platform. Blockchain tech company Bitfury is partnering with radiology blockchain marketplace Medical Diagnostic Web to create blockchain-based medical imaging ecosystem. The partnership was announced by Bitfury Group in a blog post on February 11th. Established in 2011, the Bitfury Group operates as a software manufacturer and a provider of security and infrastructure for the Bitcoin blockchain. The company raised $500 million in revenue in 2018. Medical Diagnostic Web is a radiology blockchain platform that allows radiologists to contact with imaging facilities and share patient data and medical images. Within the new collaboration, Bitfury, MDW, and blockchain-powered life data marketplace, Genesis, will develop a platform for maintaining, sharing, and securing medical imaging and diagnostics information such as X-rays and CAT scans. The platform will purportedly be built on Bitfury's private blockchain framework, Exonum, which will enable transactions to be validated using anchoring technology. Genesis will purportedly ensure that only authorized parties have access to the medical data recorded on the blockchain, also guaranteeing compliance with Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR.
Wow. So this is they basically got a blockchain solution, right? That's HIPAA and GDRP compliant.
Yeah, this is talking my language now.
I was just about to ask you jump in. Go ahead.
Well, in particular, because imaging is a very big issue across the nation. At my particular facility, sometimes we have to reorder chest x-rays because a patient will come in with the central line and we don't know if the actual central line is in the correct place. Well, the central line we want it, generally we want it in the cable atrial junction. So, but we don't know if it's there. Sometimes, like we had a patient, it was a PIC line that was cut to a midline, but from the outside it looks like a PIC line, and you don't know that, so you got to get a chest X-ray, and because we're going into this 5G era, where we're already having so many sources of radio frequencies, and then you have the increased frequency of chest X-rays to verify placement of various lines that you insert in somebody. It's very helpful to have a repository of data. In this case, it's going to be a blockchain format, so that way we can access imaging records from other facilities, because different facilities use different types of repositories for their imaging. So sometimes we can't access, and we have to just do the X-ray all over again. And they could have just came from an ER, from another facility, and just had the X-ray done.
Could be using GE Healthcare or Philips or
we use GE where I'm at.
Yep. and that's some of the stuff that we, me being in cybersecurity, that's some of the stuff that we focus on as well. Of how do you, um, how do you make this data available from a security standpoint, so that it can be accessed by other institutions without compromising the data at the same time. And blockchain only fits 50% of that bill, but at the same time, a lot of the sources, like you just mentioned, are actually proprietary and they don't interact with each other at all, and causes downtime. It causes integrity issues as well because it has to be transcribed or transcoded.
Or if they just had some type of, if they had like, like this blockchain data, and you store data in, in a similar format, that way, like different, like for instance, we use Epic, some places use CACS, some places use
Yep.
Metatech.
Hmm.
And if these particular interface programs had form fields, that could populate with data from a blockchain, and they could still you could still use your individual proprietary computerized record system,
Hmm.
but you can pull data from a blockchain and it just populates the field for your proprietary software for your facility.
Right. It should be able to extract certain data points in order to get the necessary data in
Yeah,
order to
yeah.
process. Yeah, that's something that that's been discussed for quite some time.
Are
I
you
think
familiar
there.
with
Go
Are you
ahead.
familiar with Care Everywhere? Because that's what we use now. It's not like it's not like completely universal, but some of the facilities are utilizing Care Everywhere, which is like kind of like a repository for certain data, and we can like pull from Care Everywhere and like
I'm
kind of look at.
familiar with it. I'm
You
familiar with it.
familiar with it?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm not too far away from those facilities. Boston Scientific, GE Health. They're all within 5 minutes of walking from me. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we use Boston Scientific products at my facility too. I think pretty much everywhere uses Boston Scientific though. So.
Yeah, Boston is actually the number one city in the country for life sciences.
Are you familiar with the Tenet Health? Tenet Health?
I've heard of it. I've heard of it.
It's a big umbrella company. I don't know if they actually make too much on their own, but they're like an umbrella company, and it's like I don't know, like 50 some companies underneath it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely. We covered a couple of hangouts discussing like medical technology at the next generation standpoint. I mean, we covered a hangout for Africa. I think digital transformation, where they was talking about using blockchain in Africa to handle medical records. I think they call it MediRec, Lino.
Oh, my bad. I thought I was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was on mute. I know I was muted. My bad. Yeah.
Hmm.
And for all the listeners, I mean, you've heard him say it several times, blockchain. And I believe that website that you were sharing earlier had courses for blockchain. This is
What
this
is that? ADX?
the website that you said that was offering courses at a discount, like you could
Oh,
take
yeah, EDX. EDX.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I believe you said there was blockchain courses available on that website, correct?
Yeah.
Lionel. Yeah, Lionel took a whole entire program on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean that may be the direction. My most of my career has been in, besides the military, been in healthcare, but I'm definitely eyeballing that blockchain because it's the way of the future. What's the way of the present, let alone the future.
Yeah, we actually that's our next article. It's our final article for tonight, and then we'll open up for open mic. All right, this one's from Forbes.com. The future of blockchain, FinTech 50 2019. Oh, this stupid pop-up. As the price of Bitcoin collapsed last year from a high of $19,000 to less than $4,000, skepticism fell over many other applications of blockchain, the technology that powers most cryptocurrencies by recording transactions without central authority. Much of the hype surrounding promises that sounded too good to be true is dissipating as reality and regulations set in. What remains, however, are proven teams flush with cash from mainstream investors and increasingly in actual revenue. Going forward, the blockchain selections from this year's Forbes FinTech 50 2019 will be undoubtedly form some unusual alliances as they evolve past competing against other blockchain startups to competing in mainstream finance against long established players. I'm actually not going to go over all of these. We just covered Bitfury. Um, there's a lot of money being tossed around. Circle's right down the street from me, the headquarters. $3 billion valuation. Coinbase. This is more of a who's who than anything else. It doesn't really, unless you're going to invest into these companies or you want a Rolodex of the a blockchain Rolodex, so to speak. This is really what it's all about. But it's open mic right now. Information man, you have anything you want to bring up that you think that will be of interest to us?
No, let me just remind you all, if you haven't checked out, I did a video that I dropped just last night surrounding 5Gs and the radio, the radio electric and the magnetic impact that this technology may have on us, on our bodies. I heard Super Triz just speaking earlier about the X-ray machines and what have you. So if we've got 2Gs, 3Gs, and 4Gs hitting us, and now we're going to get hit with 5Gs, which is going to link into just about everything. And then we talk about microchipping. You got in Europe, they're experimenting with microchips in people's hands where you can open up doors, do your banking through just swiping your hand. All of this energies, all these frequencies that are also interfering with, I would say, are the natural frequencies of the environment that we live in, the universe that we live in. I'm concerned about how it's impacting. And I believe the article I read yesterday in the video was from the European Union, where some of their scientists and their medical personnel are taking a look at 5Gs, and they're saying that there may need to be a moratorium on it to look at the health effects and the impacts that it's going to have on our bodies. And we know the United States is ready to run with this. What are your thoughts about this? Because this 5Gs, it concerns me. Everything has a concern when we're dealing with technology, but then they're talking about more towers being created and lowering the towers as well with this new technology. What do you think?
I think there's a market that's going to emerge for a Faraday cage jumpsuit, because I mean this nonsense, because they did I think they did an experiment. I think it was somewhere it was in Norway, where all those birds just basically just dropped out of the sky when they turned the 5G signal on, because the issue is obviously the 5Gs is what you consider millimeter waves, but it's because the millimeter waves, the actual wavelength is so short. It doesn't penetrate, so they gotta crank the wattage up really high and the voltage, as opposed to the 4G. You can space the towers further apart, but the 5G, you got to put the towers and the transmitters a lot closer together, and you got to crank the wattage up so it'll penetrate. So that way you won't have any dead spots. You have to blanket the entire area. And unfortunately, moving into automated technology, the massive amounts of data is going to have to be transferred between the actual objects in motion, say for instance a car, and other vehicles on the road. There's going to be transference of data, on a massive scale. So you're going to have 5G in order to do that effectively. But unfortunately, I don't think the health risks outweigh the benefits. That's just my opinion.
No, that's I was going to say that's kind of what the cost analysis on it all is, right? Because you have so much of our future technologies are predicated upon 5G connectivity that the potential returns kind of outweigh what a lot of research, the internal researchers anyway, foresee as any sort of like human risk. Right? They see one not necessarily being as much of a problem to offset the benefits of the other. And then to speak to what Super Triz was just talking about, so that's the main concern that that people are having right now is that all of the 5G transponders, they're being set up in residential areas. Like when
Yes.
he was saying that, because they have to be blanketed, the signal's so short, they literally have to stick these things up. Like they're only maybe like, man, I forgot, it was like maybe 800 yards or something, and they just sticking them all up in these neighborhoods and stuff. So that means that, you got basically people getting microwaved.
Yeah. Yeah. The article that I was looking at was called Welcome to the 5G EU page. They're trying to appeal this. They started in 2017. And it says here 5Gs will substantially increase exposure to radio frequencies, electric magnetic fields, RF, EMF, on top of the 2Gs, 3Gs, 4Gs, Wi Fi, etc. The telecommunications already in place has been proven to be harmful for humans and the environment. About 218 scientists and medical doctors have signed an appeal that the 5G's appeal is what it's called. It's still open for endorsement for scientists.
Mhm.
PhD professor or medical doctors, MDs, please contact. So they're urging. A lot of doctors are looking at this as a concern. And but in part of the article, it talked about that eventually everything through the internet, our refrigerators, all our appliances in our home, car, everything you just said is going to be operating off of this 5Gs at some point in time as the new technology takes hold. And we already know that people are dying of cancer, there's various diseases. And I just look at it as just this, brothers. Super says people are expendable, the dollar is recoverable. Economics is the way. And hell, personally, I think they want to decrease some of the population in this society any goddamn way. So,
Mhm.
if they bring this technology out and some people die, well, that's the cost of doing business for this technology. And it's all about money at the end of the day.
You
Well,
know,
you got to also understand too that there's also an entire healthcare industry that supports anyone that has any issues or any problems for all this. So all of these systems are they support each other, right? That's why there's really not much thought into the human impact, because their system is in place to support anyone that might be dealing with health issues or something.
there is a viable technology that Nikola Tesla invented, and that was the broadcast energy transmitter to wirelessly send electricity through the air. That technology is viable, and that technology, if if he invented a technology to send electricity through the air to power devices, you can also send information, which is all a wireless communication device is. That technology is viable. So that tells me that technology, for whatever reason, is not being used here. And I think that Information Man touched on something that's very real, which is the perceived idea that the planet is overpopulated and needs to be, to a certain degree, depopulated. That there is a certain group who share that particular mindset. Because I cannot see the purpose and viability of rolling out new technologies that clearly have one huge, massive effect, and that is to end human lifespans. I do not see how that's viable
Well,
unless they
I
totally
think
reduce populations.
well, I think that there are safeguards. There's just encoded safeguards into our genome for those of us that are under a certain age. As we get older, obviously, the ability to replicate cells uh, exactly becomes compromised, and we start having cancers and things like that. And so, I think there may now. I'm thinking as a amoral pragmatist here. So, kind of bear with me. But when we look at the actual population data and the distribution amongst different age demographics, we find that here in the United States, the current direction that our population is going is unsustainable, because you have a large degree of people who are elderly, and these people, elderly people are actually taking more from the pot than they're contributing. And what happens is that we start looking at social programs, social security, we start looking at pensions, unsustainable. people won't be able to collect on those funds because there's not enough people of working age contributing to these programs. And so those people who will be greatly affected, by 5G, obviously, and unable to recover from some of the adverse effects would be the elderly. So, the depopulation would begin from the top down. And again, amoral pragmatist, but there could be some benefit, for depending on who you are, there could be some benefit to that depopulation of the geriatric population.
Well, I understand from an intellectual standpoint what you said as far as natural biological mechanisms in place to defend against certain energies. However, what we're talking about are unnatural energies. These are things, these are energies and wavelengths. These are energies that are man made. Okay, so everything in nature adapts and it evolves. So our body, as you say, has natural defenses embedded, evolved into us. But those are to counter the solar radiations that make it through the Allen belt. We were never adapted to fight off the technologies and the energies that are floating through our air, all of these signals. So as much as I agree with you that we have these natural embedded biological defenses, they're not evolved to help protect us against what man is creating now, specifically Wi-Fi, Bluetooth,
Well,
5G, 5G technology.
that goes into, there obviously there are discrepancies in wealth, and so certain technologies will only be accessible to the wealthy initially, and in particular I'm talking about gene editing.
But
So I would imagine there would
that's
be some type
different
of,
from what you said as far as natural, natural things in place. I agree with what you're saying, what you're saying now, because that's if you have certain, if you're of means, then you have the ability to protect yourself from the very things that you are creating to depopulate the planet.
well, and when I say natural defense mechanisms, obviously is not going to be foolproof. But what I'm saying is that, like, if we look at, say for instance, age demographics, between the ages of 18 and 35, and you look at the age demographic between the ages of say 60 to 75, right? And you compare the actual effects of 5G exposure, and you may have maybe 30% of that younger demographic adversely affected by the 5G, whereas the older demographic, maybe 70% would be effective. So there are people who probably may be more resistant at a younger age. And so that's what I'm getting at. I think there's going to be casualties all around, in my personal opinion. But I think the bulk of the casualties will occur from the geriatric population, which some people may see as as an acceptable casualty rate.
Personally, I don't, but that's another
I
conversation
mean,
for
I was going to
another
say,
day.
if I was an elderly person who was paying for 5G service, I wouldn't feel too good about the notion that I'm paying you to kill me.
Yeah, I would kind of want to knock on Super Treasure's door and tell him, "Yo,
What the
son, you
fuck?
can get these hands.
Now,
Either
now,
you
see,
or
now,
me
now, let's
die
be clear.
because I'm
I'm not a
old."
proponent of 5G technology. I'm not a proponent of it. I'm just
I'm
looking at
being
it from a moral
facetious. I'm
pragmatist
being
standpoint
facetious.
and
Go
saying, who stands to benefit from this, and who stands to actually experience severe detriment. And I think that primarily the people who are low income and people who are elderly will bear the brunt.
Well, I think I mean, to take a pragmatist view of it, I wouldn't say that the end result or the end game or what is actually intended, as a result of rolling this out is for like old people to die. That's not that's what that is that that's like a byproduct, right? And what's been determined is that, you know, as an industry, we're okay with maybe some of the human side effects of this technology. Right now, our research says that not everybody succumbs to this, and these things have a number of outliers and a number of conditions that will determine whether someone may succumb to 5G frequencies or not, right? So they'll play the whole mixed bag role, right?
Well,
But the benefit that they see isn't in the death of people. That's not where the benefit in the rollout of this technology comes from. The benefit in the rollout of the technology comes from everything else that basically operates off of a 5G platform. So that's where the windfall profits, that's where everything is seen. The human side of it, that's kind of like the cost of business, if you will.
but
Well, China.
I'm sorry, family.
No, I was just going to mention that China already started working on 6G on the first of the month. So
Um,
they're already moving ahead. If 5G doesn't pass, they're moving on with 6G anyways in
Now
China.
we're just sauteing humans.
Well,
well,
we don't know what the
No.
specification of
Yeah.
6G is, but people still smoke cigarettes, and that's legal in the market. And the United States
Right.
government doesn't do anything about that. You got
Hmm.
black people. Well, I shouldn't say black people, but people drinking alcohol in the White House, mouthwash or isopropyl or whatever it was that woman was drinking, to get a fix. Um,
well, you know the the majestic. No, I'm sorry, the Majestic 12 initiative came down to, I believe it's two options, option one and option two. Option one was to, as I said, create space exploration technology and leave the Earth with the best and the brightest, and leave everyone here to their fates. Option two was depopulation, reduce the population to a manageable state, and then start again. So there are and have been plans in place at the very highest, deepest, darkest levels for exactly what Super Chris was talking about. Actual plans in place to depopulate. So, to speak to what Complex said, if you can roll out a technology, and if a side effect is it's going to only kill off older people, but at the same time usher in other new, um, more advanced tech at the same time, then those are, as the military says, acceptable collateral losses.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of like and because I mean I look I can kind I, see, I in my mind I can see it, right. Anything that's created by a human, right, has the ability to be misused by a human, and as a result of that
Right,
misuse, a
right,
human
right. And
losses can amount. Yeah.
the rub,
Well,
historically, the military has been the most powerful driving force between the advancement of technology. And not all technologies that have been released to the general public have been of beneficial use. Nuclear power being one. Nuclear power is not viable. It poisons the planet, and what's left behind is in the form of nuclear waste is radioactive for at least 1,000 years. That's
but
not
Paul,
viable.
it was able to be commercialized.
Exactly, and that's the point. It may not create atmospheric emissions, but the waste it leaves behind is worse because you can't go anywhere near this stuff. It has to be stored, and you can't send humans near it for 1,000 years. And God forbid we see something like what happened at the Fukushima plant, where now we have fish infected with radioactive iodine being caught off the west coast of America. Okay, so things like that, technologies that have a human side effect, but at the same time are beneficial in other ways. There are certain individuals who share the mindset that that's okay because the way they see it, it's a win-win.
And there's also the mindset of never let a good disaster go to waste. Okay, so in that view, uh, something bad happening is an opportunity.
mhm.
If you want to take like a real true pragmatist view, right? So a failure, a catastrophic failure of some kind, is the perfect opportunity to learn. Right. So again, it's really just a matter of how you view the potential or the potentialities for human loss as the result of a technological rollout.
There's a question from the chat. I don't know if the panel wants to answer it, but Duplicate says, so if 5G is basically line of sight carrier wave, then will you be safe inside of most structures and or vehicles? Anybody want to answer that?
I answered it in the chat, but my understanding is that the power from 5G is only used for broadcasting purposes and not so much as on the device itself, right? So your next Android device that has 5G is not like if you pick it up, it's going to roast your hand or it's going to blow your head off. However, the concern is at the tower level and not at the endpoint level. Because those devices are so low powered that they don't really have that much of an effect. I mean, they had these discussions in the 90s that basically discussed, people holding up these phones to their heads, the microwave frequency would actually fry your brain, and people still held those phones to their heads, and nothing has really actually happened as of yet. There's no known cases of a person holding a Motorola StarTAC to their head, and next thing you know, their hair's falling out of their head. To my understanding, that hasn't happened yet. I think there is concern about the frequency that microwave transmissions flow at. You're talking 60 gigahertz, 100 gigahertz, 120 gigahertz. Yeah, that makes sense that you would be concerned at that level, but that's all the way at the tower base. That's not at the end point where the device is, where your tablet and your phone is, and the vehicle that it's going to be connected to. At some point, we need to have a next iteration of communications protocol beyond 4G. 4G does not cover the new devices of Internet of Things that are coming online that need this sort of scalability, and that's where 5G comes in. And my understanding is that 5G is so accurate, it's down to a millimeter, as opposed to 4G. 4G is down to square footage. It's just not. It's not always accurate. Because if you look at some of the cases of trying to narrow down, some of the what they call them, your areas of your air gap areas of communication, where sometimes you have drop calls and things of that nature. 5G actually covers all of those last mile areas. So that's why 5G is important to have as the next iteration. And I think that going forward, you'll start to see more algorithms put inside these phones and these devices, so that they're not constantly on 5G. They'll switch back down to 4G for voice calls, but for 5G they'll switch back over for data.
Well, Mike, what about high tension power lines? Because they were proven that when they put those things in residential neighborhoods, because certain areas of the country, especially in the South, they don't bury the power lines. The power lines are on those high tension power lines, and they cause cancer. And that's how we have the term cancer clusters. So if you're telling me that these potential 5G transmitters are going to do the same thing, and if they have to be blanketed in residential neighborhoods, are we now turning neighborhoods once again into cancer clusters?
Yes.
Well, my grandfather, he worked on power lines. That was his job, and of course, he died of brain cancer. Nobody else in the family ever had brain cancer but him. And when there's been studies that have shown, using infrared technology, and they can see the increase of substantial increase in heat signature. Now, I don't know if that's from heat generated from the processor, or if it's actual, shortwave radiation that's emanating from the handset when people have the handset up to their head for the cellular phones. And, I think for traditional calls, maybe not so bad, but now people are, I think that, moving forward, we're going to see people having the phone as their solitary device. People still have computers and laptops, but I think moving forward, as the 5G technology comes online and the processing power of these handsets become even greater, there won't be a need for a computer at all. You'll be able to run multiple programs simultaneously, perhaps even wirely transmit a signal to an external monitor. And so the phone itself will take the place of a computer. And then because of these phones now have the capability to serve as internet hotspots. So now they'll be a source of that 5G energy too.
Oh, yeah, Microsoft already has a phone with HP that does that. I think it's called the HP X3 Windows phone that came out a couple of years ago. It basically has a docking station that connects to a monitor that runs Windows right off the phone itself. So now you have all you need to do is bring a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, and you basically have a full Windows desktop from your phone. Um, I know that Google is working on bringing Android into Chrome and just having one big Chrome OS from your phone down to your watch down to your desktop into your TV as well, Chromecast. So
Yeah, and you also want to look into the rollout of neural networks, right? So that's what would enable more of a broad connection between all devices, how all devices talk to each other. So super true is what you were saying, like you wouldn't be reliant on say like one central device
mhm.
per se, right? But everything being connected, you could just go to something, right? And you could get diagnostics like from your refrigerator, you'll be able to access your computer or your phone
Are you
and
guys
vice versa.
are you guys aware of Facebook, the former, I want to say CFO of Facebook? She was at a she left the company, but she was at a tech meeting about a year ago, and she was unveiling a piece of technology. It looked like she had some like wearable lace type device on one of her wrists. And what she said was it was a technology that was basically almost wired into her nervous system, and she could, using her mind, that there's a transmitter built into this device, and she can control certain enabled devices. That this is a product that they're working on, so that you can literally put a piece of technology on your body, and it will interact with the environment around you. You can lock and unlock doors, web browse, make payments. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
all and this is real tech right now that works.
that's been around with Google for a couple of years now, with their Google Watch operating system as well as their previous Android system. I think it was Marshmallow. I want to say it was Marshmallow version that came out that they were working on that. My phone actually unlocks my laptop. My Android phone unlocks my Chromebook, and it also unlocks different websites and things like that that I need to get to for payment, including my all my banking as well.
Right, right. But what I mean is this 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 wearable technology, it's communicating with your brain. This is literal thought controlled technology, is what I'm saying. So basically, it's science. It's yet again science fiction made real.
Hmm.
You can call it rudimentary cybernetics,
Correct.
non-invasive cybernetics, or
And
I'm trying to think of some other terms to give it, but that's the precipice because where do you go from there?
I can also tell you this: DARPA has been working on doing the same thing in equipping soldiers with basically
Yeah,
battle armor.
exoskeletons.
Correct. That's controlled. That's directly thought controlled,
Hmm.
and that they were actually that basically what we saw in the movie Firefox, that DARPA and the Air Force, they invented that thought control weapon systems. There was a problem with the interface as far as emotions interfering with thoughts, and you know, but that
That's
my
neurosciences.
correct, and you know, personally, my concern is where is this leading us? You know,
Well,
is it too much? Is it too much too fast? Because my concern is we're gonna wake up one day and we're gonna have a real world Skynet, and it's gonna build T-800s and kill us all.
Well, my concern is that 300 years from now, you won't be able to recognize your lineage. 300 years from now, people will look at paintings, photos of people from our generation and think we're damn primates, apes, great apes or some sort, because they'll look so much more differently because they'll get to a point where in order to compete in the landscape, you'll have to be modified to even be a factor because a conventional human will lack the dexterity, will lack the brain processing power, will lack certain things to interface with the environment on a
Gattaca.
level par with computers and automated entities. So people will change themselves not necessarily for aesthetic reasons, but the aesthetic byproduct will be something that no longer resembles what the conventional human of today looks like.
Yeah,
Well, that speaks to
Gattaca.
the nature of
Manipulation.
well, I was going to say that speaks to the nature of evolution, right? And what we're defining as evolution. Is evolution, is it merely just, oh, okay, well, I live in a place where the fruit on the trees are high up, so I guess just over the next 100 years, my family's just going to grow taller so we can grab the fruit. Okay, I guess that's one way of evolution, sure. But I would say also evolution would be progressive thought, right? Like a thought in your mind that says, what this would be an idea to make something better, right? So that people don't have to deal with this sort of thing in the future, right? So it's an improvement. That's evolution. Okay, so that could even be something that we would term artificial. So I think evolution has an organic or a natural means, and then there's also human evolution, right? Humans' own impetus to improve itself.
Well, we've already unlocked stem cells, and we've already unlocked cloning. So if they can clone sheep and they can clone cats and dogs, they can clone humans. And that secret has already been unlocked using stem cells. That's the secret to human cloning. And that's viable tech that we've had for over, what, 25 years now.
Yeah, but I think we're going into this realm though where we're going to be talking about like transference of consciousness. And
Ah,
yeah, taking consciousness and then putting it into like a machine, for example. Or basically taking consciousness and then being able to isolate it, and then house it into like a new 7-layer biosuit, right? I mean, I think it's that stuff, and then it's the cybernetics, right? So it's then incorporating electronics and then into and devices to work in synergy with your biology. That's, to me, that's going to be like the new realm. I think the stem cell unlocking of the stem cell is what allowed for this sort of like this new domain.
Well, if you have space exploration, you can send um, androids who are controlled by your brain using cybernetic implants. Okay, and then you can directly see and control these
Mhm.
androids. So you may be a miner. You're here on Earth, or you're in a station around the moon or around the Mars, and you're controlling an android mining the Saturn's rings or the
Yeah,
But why you
asteroids.
would
avatar.
control it when you can just transfer your consciousness and then it would act as though if you were actually there. It would
Yes,
conduct itself
yeah,
uh,
you're right. You're
as
right.
you would.
Very same lines. You're right. You're right. And I don't see any of this as far fetched. I see this as viable tech that we could very well be interacting with um, within the next 10 to 20 years, literally.
But it's funny because we've seen pretty much everything we've seen on movies growing up over the years is manifesting, and I don't know if anybody is really paying attention to the ends of the movies. It's always a bad outcome when we start tampering with genetics, when we start tampering with artificial intelligence, and uh, Android technology,
Yep.
where the actual machine has a consciousness and has self awareness.
Skynet.
Well, Skynet, And there's been so many other movies. Every movie that has that kind of technology. You know, Terminator was like the first one that I can remember, but there may be something prior to that. But like pretty much every movie after that, you know, Ex Machina and just so many other movies. It's just very bad when we have consciousness because, you know, from a logical standpoint, again, being a moral pragmatist, when we look at animals within the animal kingdom, and we're talking about organic life forms, animals, and we look at the different echelons, the stratification of animals, and you have from the lowest of the low within the biome, and then you have the apex predators.
Brother,
Right.
if you're ever of a mind, check out the movies THX 138. You can check out Metropolis, which was made
Old
way
school.
back in the
Wow.
Yeah,
1930s.
Metropolis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that idea is nothing new. Okay, and I throw those two out because they're they're quote unquote standard bearers of that dystopian future where our technology basically turns against us, where we basically become slaves to the very machines that we ourselves created.
Yeah,
and why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we become slaves, or even as slaves, just exterminated? Because just the natural distribution of apex predators dictates that we are overpopulated as apex predators, and we're concentrated in the city centers. This is why you have so many conflicts amongst each other, because apex predators are not meant to be in such tight distribution. Like, there needs to be more space for us, and the population is going to increase even more so, and then you start implementing this artificial intelligence with sentience. They're going to determine us as a threat to not only the planet but to them as well.
yeah. I just wanted to share my screen real quick because we were talking about neuroscience. There's actually a degree program on edx.org from Harvard University going for $267 right now. The fundamentals of neuroscience. And it covers three programs: Fundamentals of Neuroscience Part One, Fundamentals of Neuroscience Part Two, and the Fundamentals of Neuroscience Part Three. The brain. Um, only requires 3 to 5 hours per week, less than what you would spend on a hangout, and for 15 weeks per course. Um, and it's a from accredited institution, which is Harvard. You can't beat that. I will drop that in the chat because it's relevant to what we are talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a very good course. I mean, especially coming from Harvard, the prestige associated with Harvard, and just the actual price point is very attractive.
Yeah, less
Yeah.
than a pair of young
Jordan,
Yeezys.
true,
You
true,
know,
true sense.
I don't even wear Yeezys. Like some of this stuff, and now because Gucci done, this is a sidebar issue, but Gucci done came out with this blackface after Prada came out with that nonsense. They didn't learn from Prada's mistake. Now they're gonna come out with blackface. That's like, I got to get rid of all this Gucci crap.
Well, well, if you want, if brothers listening to this or people listening to this want that information, I did drop it in the chat, and I do think it's something that Black people should focus on. Neuroscience is actually something we discussed before on some of our previous hangouts, but nonetheless, it's actually beneficial to have that level of education coming from a accredited institution at such a cheap price. All you have to do is open up your super chat, and somebody can actually fund you to go to school rather than to throw a baby shower.
True. That's a good point.
Argue about hair, argue about weave. I mean, I just do it. It literally boggles my mind the things that people choose to spend their time arguing about and
Go
shit.
ahead, information man.
No, no, I agree with everything that you just said. There's so
Hmm.
many things that we could take advantage of educationally, skill wise,
Hmm.
that we muddle in the insignificant, such as, a lot of people want to focus on materialistic items, Gucci,
Hmm.
which I think these are the sort of things that we need to be gearing our children towards. I think everything that we need will be within our youth and where
Hmm.
we guide them. So I think that's fantastic. Take those kind of courses and neurosciences. That's pretty powerful stuff.
You know what, information man. We discuss this a lot. We always talking about EDX because we rant and rave about it because it's from accredited institutions. It avoids the whole entire ball and chain to your ankle with student loans. There's alternatives out there to get that sort of education, if need be. So there's no more excuses anymore. Brothers can't make up excuses about they didn't. I couldn't get into Morehouse. I couldn't get into Howard. You know, you can go to EDX right now, sign up, and you're getting good education at significantly less than 1/10 of a apartment payment, a rental payment inside New York.
Hmm.
And at a fraction of the time. Okay, I'm not gonna go there. Never mind.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. It's just one of those things. Information, man. We gotta actually, pull our resources together, our knowledge resources together, and actually share that and say, here you go, brother. I'm not gonna take the course, but here you go.
Well,
and something to think about. That it may be even practical to look into. I know that's not a lot of money, but just practicality purposes, there may be financial aid available. There may be some type of tax benefit too. So just education is always a good thing, especially when it's reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm.
If you spend as an individual, if you spend 267 on a neurology course, and then you spend what I believe it was $1,200 on one of those Bitcoin or blockchain courses. Okay, now that's money that's of benefit and of substantial use to you. That's money that you can then use to land yourself a substantial income, which will then enable you to improve your situation, which will then enable you to go into a field of technology whereby you can then be of some use and benefit to yourself and to those around you. Okay, so now
you know what, Paul? I got a call from a company in New York. We were on a hangout one night just before the hangout had started. I got a call from New York, and they offered me a blockchain developer's position at $180,000 a year.
Okay.
Good. This is recent. So I'm not certified in blockchain. I'm not as knee deep into it as Lionel is, but that's the type of money that's floating around. There's Lambo money floating around for these positions.
Yep.
And with the way that this president or this administration is revoking H-1B visas and things of that nature, it's opened up a lot of opportunities for black men.
Right, and once again, as opposed to the time that a person is required to spend per week on these courses, anywhere from 8 to 12 hours per week, okay, as opposed to spending 4 to 8 hours per day discussing weave and other trivial nonsense, you can do something of substantial benefit to yourself, potentially those around you. Okay, so this is a roadmap, so as you say, if you are an individual interested in neuroscience, interested in the blockchain, interested in any of the related fields and technologies, there's literally nothing stopping you. You have the ability to do so without incurring tens of thousands of dollars in college student loan debt. Okay, so it's about perspective. It's all about your perspective.
Super Trish, what did you major in?
Hmm?
What did you major in?
Nursing. I have a Bachelor of Science in Nursing.
Okay. Did you follow for a master's or anything like that?
No, and I probably won't be. I'll probably be looking at some other field or some other area of study, because I'm looking towards something that I would do when I'm retired. I don't want to do nursing forever.
Well, somebody's got to take care of you.
Huh?
Somebody's got to take care of you.
And
the
that's
robots will.
For guys who are maybe they're not technologically inclined. From a standpoint of cost benefit analysis, even just having an associate's in nursing, because you can work as a registered nurse and sit for your boards. I don't have an associate's. I had an associate's in applied science, and I was able to sit for my nursing boards. So you sit for your nursing boards, and with an associate's degree, a 2-year degree, and you're able to make 6 figures working 4 days a week. You know, so that's something that people need to think about as well. Like that cost benefit analysis of only spending 2 years in school and having the potential of making 6 figures working 4 days a week, 5 days a week, you can even make even more, you know. So that's just something to think about.
Right. And, again, these are the conversations that are of beneficial use to those who are of the mind to do so. Okay. But, again, it comes down to perspective because there are black men who are in these fields who have these perspectives, who have the experience, who are willing to pass this on if other people are of the mind to listen and apply themselves accordingly.
Mhm. Mhm. Information, man, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I have nothing, brother. I'm gonna get ready to get off right now. I appreciate you having me on, sending me the link. I just enjoyed sitting back and listening, learning, taking in the information
Mhm.
because these are things that are going to help me to do more further research and try to delve into some of these areas. And I look forward to having you brothers on my channel where we can just let you guys do your thing and I want more and more people to hear what you brothers are talking about and inspiring more people and more people knowing about your channel and supporting what you're doing. That's what I want to do, so I look forward to that next week. Super Trez, is good hearing you too, brother. I've worked around a lot of nurses at my job. So when I hear you talk about your nursing profession, brother, I'm around nurses all the time and very good work, which you all do.
Mhm.
I deal in mental health and I deal with a lot of guys in the prison system that are in they're having some real critical issues mentally, emotionally. But this is real good. This is good therapy to talk with intelligent brothers and just hear, learn it, stuff that I'm not aware of. I just sit back and shut up and listen, take it in and learn. That's what life is all about. We're always learning and improving. So thank you.
Absolutely,
Absolutely.
man.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you for stopping by.
No problem, brother. I'll be back soon, checking in. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Be good.
Super Trish, you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, this has been a very, very enlightening conversation. It's always good to be around men of merit, men who actually have a vision for the future as opposed to dwelling in the present and the past. Um, in closing, I'll just say that you know, anybody that's interested in the healthcare industry, feel free to contact me. I know a lot of people are squeamish about the healthcare because they feel that they'll be encountering blood. My particular specialty, what I do, I'm around blood frequently, but there are areas where you don't even deal with blood at all. And I specialize in vascular access, so I'm basically dealing with IV central lines and things of that nature, dealing with blood vessels, and so um, there's areas of specialty. And then moving forward, especially with the introduction of certain technologies into the healthcare continuum, there'll be a melding of those different technologies. So, there'll be specialties in nursing probably dealing with cybernetics sometime in the future. So, and then also for those of you who looking into getting healthcare, consider being a medical doctor as well. There's a little bit more investment as far as that's concerned, but that's something to think about as well. There's just so many aspects: physical therapy, respiratory therapy, and then of course the technology that drives it, blockchain, information systems. You have the cybersecurity is very, very big in healthcare, like absolutely absolute necessity. So like that's something to think about. Like for those of you who are getting into these technological fields, once you actually receive your knowledge base, look into moving into the healthcare industry, because that's something that's going to be in perpetuity. There's always going to be a need for healthcare, and there's going to be a need for the technology that supports it.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, and stay on after we stop the broadcast.
Yeah, stick around.
Yeah, because we're gonna be doing a hangout on uh healthcare science as well. There's another brother on YouTube that he doesn't come around as much as before, but he does the same exact thing that you do. So
Sounds good.
yeah. All right. So thank you all for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday with episode 143, which is geopolitics. Peace.